Testing, testing.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Paso Robles City Council for Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. It's now 6:30. We'll open the meeting, and if you would, Madam Clerk, please call the roll call.
Councilmember Rausch.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Roden.
Here.
Councilmember Strong.
Here.
Mayor Hammond.
And we're here. So if it all would please stand, and also stand for the invocation afterwards, led by Councilwoman Roden.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you in Jesus' name. You are Lord over everything, you are on the throne, and you reign over everything. Thank you for being in control. Thank you for extending your mercy and grace to us when we certainly don't deserve it. Thank you for the gracious opportunity you've granted us to come into your presence, and we ask for your blessing and your help. What a privilege it is to come to you and ask for whatever we need. We express our deep gratitude for our city of Paso Robles. On behalf of our city, I ask you to bless our city council with direction and wisdom during this meeting this evening. The fear of the Lord is and will always be the beginning of wisdom. We respect you, Father God, and give you all the honor and glory that we can possibly give. You deserve it all. Now may the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. And as always, be magnified and glorified in Paso Robles. We ask these things in the name that is above every name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Duran. And we'll start it off with staff introductions. So Melissa, if you would begin.
Melissa Boyer, City Clerk, joined by Shauna Heilenstein, Civic Engagement Coordinator, and Karen Jackson, IT Technician.
Chris Hewlett, Assistant City Manager.
Vitas Esperanza, Capital Projects Engineer.
Brian Cornell, Administrative Services Director.
Lindsay Fortin, Community Services Director. Shannon Bass, HR.
Paul Patty, Fire Marshal. City Planner. Mark Vandals, Airport Manager.
Phoebe Brown, Airport Commissioner.
Tony Gaspar, Airport Commissioner.
Ty Lewis, City Manager.
Elizabeth Hall, City Attorney.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to presentations. We have only one tonight, and that's the Paso Robles Rotary Club 100th Anniversary Proclamation. So what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, all Rotarians past and present, that includes a couple of council members, and everybody out there that is or was a Rotarian, please join me up front, along with President Bob Vilhauer. Good to have you here, Luke. So this is a proclamation honoring the 100th anniversary of the Paso Robles Rotary Club, founded January 15th, 2024, actually is when it was founded. So, whereas the Paso Robles Rotary Club is celebrating its 100th year of service since being chartered on January 15th, 1924, and since then has been involved with its members' time, talent, and financial support to a wide variety of local charitable works and international projects benefiting thousands of Roblins and also people from around the world. Rotary is a global network of 1.4 million neighbors, friends, and leaders in over 46,000 clubs around the world, connecting passionate people with a commitment to service with diverse perspectives that exchange ideas, forge lifelong friendships, and above all, take action to change the world through the model of service above self. Whereas the Rotary Club of Paso Robles continues to develop local fundraising efforts to raise well over $1 million in recent years to donate to financial support for local community projects. And whereas the Rotary Club of Paso Robles has provided substantial and meaningful contributions to college trade funds, college scholarships, and trade schools for graduating high school seniors, and also to hundreds of nonprofit groups like ECHO, homeless organization, Paso Robles Boy Scouts, the Boys and Girls Club, Pioneer Museum, Paso Robles Children's Museum, the Volunteer Firehouse, Assistance League for San Luis Obispo County, Operation School Belt, and just to name a few. So now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, John Hammond, by virtue of authority vested in me as mayor and speaking on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim January 15th, 2024 as Rotary Club of Paso Robles 100th anniversary, a day of special recognition for all that have done for the benefit of Paso Robles and over the century of service above self. And if you would, this is our president, Mr. Bob Vilhauer, if you would like to say a word.
Sure. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Paso Robles, I want to thank the City Council for this historic recognition. Most of all, I want to thank the city and all of its employees for the outstanding partnership our club has shared with you over 100 years. Our community is a much better place because of this partnership, and I thank all of you for working with us on so many projects and events over the years. I also want to invite all of you to our centennial celebration on Saturday, January 27th at the Frontier Pavilion of the Event Center to share this momentous occasion. And that we have flyers outside. It says a deadline of January 12th, but if you want to come to the door and we'll figure out a way to let you in. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Give him a hand. All right. right, now we're at the point for general public comments. This is the time that the public may address the council on items that are in the council purview but not scheduled on the agenda tonight. Anyone wishing to speak, fill out a card and give it to our clerk. And if you would, then line up. We have 3 minutes for each person. And I guess we'll start with Dale Gustin.
Dale Gustin, 630 13th Street. I just want to thank the city for your part in helping the Martin Luther King celebration come off as nice as it did. And it was really a nice event. I had the pleasure of knowing Edna Navarro, who started that, I don't know, 17 years
17
ago.
years,
A long time
yeah.
ago. And she was quite a lady. And it's been going on ever since she started it. And we always had a walk, except the year it rained. And this year we had a walk. And thank you, Mayor, and the other city councilmen that participated in the walk, as well as the celebration. Also, I want to put my dig in that please listen to the public on this parking issue.
Thank you, Dale. Anyone else? Chief, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate this time. Just a brief thing. I know you can't take action on it tonight. The goal is to just,
Name.
oh, sorry,
Yep,
Keith
yep,
Boyd,
yep.
resident of Paso, District 3. The idea here is to bring something to your attention that I think that I'd like to see the council take into consideration and potentially give staff guidance in a future date to conduct a review of Title IX, Chapter 9.07 of the city's municipal noise code pertaining to noise. Our municipal noise ordinance hasn't been reviewed since 1982. That's 42 years ago. I believe if you look at the context of the code and compare it to our regional partners, it's out of alignment and it is vague and it is hard to interpret. With having a wife who works at home, continually dealing with music and issues of a neighboring property, the police's hands are a bit tied in the way this code is written. Section A, it deals with the making of noise. B, welfare and prosperity of residents of the city. And then it gets into prohibited noise in .020, 12 conditions that apply, very clear. And you could look at that as a section to enforce. But then you have section .030 that outlines specific types of emanating noise that's a contradiction to the other, and it doesn't correlate to how one applies to the other. And 030 sets time parameters between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., where 020 doesn't. There's nothing in our code that really allows our police department an option to address noise during daytime hours, which can be problematic. Think of our people that work shift work, working at night, trying to sleep during the day, healthcare workers, all these people, those are impacted, people working at home. So that's my issue. My concern is I just would like the council to take a look, maybe potentially direct the city attorney or staff to take a look at the code and see how it can properly be amended in the future to meet the needs of the community. Because right now, it's kind of pointless for me to call the police department. And they have a lot of busy things they deal with, but to send them out on calls without the teeth they need to enforce an issue is problematic in and of itself. And we don't want to see issues come from our lack of addressing concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Dave.
it. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Gary Lehrer. I'm with the executive board of the Republican Party of San Luis Obispo County, but I'm not here speaking on behalf, but that explains a lot to do with my involvement in politics. I hope to be I've just started a band and I hope to be playing, and I hope you come and see me play, and I'll certainly let you know when we have a gig. And I apologize for not getting the material I handed to you. My intention was to get it to you before the meeting so you'd have a chance to review it and discuss it. I don't ever want to come across as being adversarial to you. That's not my purpose. I'm here to help you. I'm your friend. And so there's been a lot of controversy, of course, over the parking. and particularly whether it was properly agendized for the November 21st meeting, and whether the instructions that were given or the decision was made was frankly a violation of the Brown Act. And my opinion is it was. And I gave you all the supporting material and my reasoning. And I don't want to have to hire a lawyer. I don't want to get legal action. I don't want to escalate this. I'm not here to be a pain in the rear end to you guys. I want to help you, and I want to help you understand what government looks like to us out here in the trenches. And frankly, there's a lot of resentment about the way that the parking situation is being handled. So much to the point that I have been asked not to discuss some of the reactions. People, they want to keep what their plans are and what they are doing. It's a matter of strategy and tactics. That's how far this has come. People see it as a big abuse of governmental power. And you probably all saw Karen Veely's article today and talking about how the DMV code, and I printed that out, and I searched to see if there was actually a parking ordinance, and I couldn't find specifically that defined Flowbird as your vendor or what the parking fees were going to be. According to Karen and the DMV code, there has to be an ordinance. And as far as the Brown Act goes, the agenda item said that was about the recommendations of the ad hoc parking committee. Those recommendations were not even listed, and there was no clear explanation. Now, I'm on the executive board of the Republican Party, and I have to be several places, and I need those agendas to be clear and non-ambiguous, so I can decide, am I going to go to this meeting or that meeting? Sometimes school board meetings. But anyway, I gave you plenty of background material to look at. I would appreciate it if you would study it. And again, I apologize for not getting it to you previously. This is not, as I said, adversarial. I just want to help you make the best decisions possible. And I believe that is your objective too. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Greg?
Good evening. My name is Greg Graywall. I live in the Creston area. I'm with the Water Resources Advisory Committee for the Slow Cattlemen's Association. I'm here tonight speaking on myself. I have some questions about the Nacimiento pipeline. So I have a document from John Diodati of the county that says in 2025 that Paso Robles is going to use 100% of their 6,488 acre feet of Nacimiento water. And you haven't increased the size of your treatment plant from 2688. So I don't know how you're going to use 100% of your Nacimiento water if you're going to sell the other part, or what you're going to do with it. For the last, since 2015, you've been letting it go to the ocean or to the benefit of Monterey. And when people ask where supplemental water is, it's going to the ocean, to Monterey. So I understand all the different things. I'm on the committee for the expanded monitoring for the basin and different things. There's 3,909 acre feet of less capacity in the Nacimiento pipeline because of the repairs that have not been completed that were temporarily fixed. There's 600 feet of pipe south of Atascadero that was washed out last year that has a rubber pipe in it right now for temporary that's going to take 3 to 4 years to fix. So how are any of these agencies going to use all of their Nacimiento water when you can't even get it through a pipe that's been busted 5 times? I'm just curious on how all this works. You're working on a blended water project that's doing a study. You don't want to use the Nasi water because it's more expensive than groundwater. You're limited by a court order on what you can take from the basin. These other guys don't have any infrastructure to move the water, even if you did blend it. Who's going to pay for this infrastructure? These are business decisions for these growers. They're not basin management decisions for the people that live over the basin. So these are questions that need to be answered on, are these documents from Diodati in the county, are they true? Is it really what he says that you're going to do is what's going to happen? Because in 2010, in your urban water management plan, It said by 2015, you were going to use your 4,000 acre feet that you had at that time. That never happened. All I ever see in all these documents and all this stuff is really nice things are written in the document, and it's just to kick the can down the road and nothing ever happens. So I truly would like some answers on, is this for real? Is it just one more thing to kick the can down the road so everybody thinks that somebody's trying to do something, but we're really not doing it? Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Cody, yeah, welcome, Cody.
Good evening. Cody Ferguson, Paso Robles. For over 10 years now, the previous speaker and I have been involved in the water war. That's how I refer to it, because that's exactly what it is. It's a war. There are private industries that are trying to get public financing based on the fact that they want to be a water district. They don't meet the criteria for a water district, period. They don't meet the state criteria, and yet here we go. Every time we turn around, they're here again to talk more about how they have a right to our water. They have the right to the water under their ground. I have the right to the water under mine, to use it, not to own it, simply to use it. You're projecting 502 new homes. How large, how much expansion are you doing on your water treatment plant? You're paying a huge, if I mention the amount, for sure I'll be wrong, but my understanding is it's over $400,000 a month. Debt service on the Nacimiento pipeline that this city pays. You're projecting 502 new homes. They're under construction right now, currently. And the bottom line here is, why aren't you expanding your water treatment plant? The Nacimiento pipeline was sold to the voters here based on the expansion of this city. That's what it was sold on. We're going to expand, the city's going to be 50,000, yada, yada, yada. Well, it's not even close to 50,000. In fact, it might even be going the other direction. But the bottom line here is, you have done nothing with regard to the expansion of your fresh potable water treatment plant. You cannot use Nacimiento water for potable water because of it. There's human contact at the lake. Swimming, water skiing, all the other stuff that goes on out there. That alone prevents you from using the water as it comes. Apparently, people didn't think about that before they went after the money for the Nacimiento pipeline through the bond procedure. But the bottom line here is, when are you going to expand your plant? Blended water does nothing. You don't even have an infrastructure for blended water. And you could have planned for blended water a long time ago and required installation of off-site infrastructure for the blended water, for example, at the Ayers Hotel, which was built 10 years ago. But you didn't plan on that. So there isn't any infrastructure for blended water except for the farmers. That's it. And you have no infrastructure to get it there.
Thank you, Cody. Anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Saw a couple things actually that I'd like to get comment from staff on. First, with the Chief Boyd talking about the noise ordinance. Do you think that's something that we can get into and maybe review? Because it is very old. And I actually had another call on another subject too, on that very point. So
it's absolutely something we can bring back and review and then bring back to council. I think that it has been updated since the 80s. There's been some updates regarding how to test for sound and some decibels. So we have done some work on it, but we're happy to have the police department take a look at it and see what kind of recommended changes that they would recommend, and then bring that back to council.
All right. Thank you, Ty. And then with Gary Lear, we've been given some paperwork that we want to look at. I'm sure we'll have our legal counsel review, and you can give us some opinions on what he's given us. Next, we had Greg Graywall asking about our water. Maybe, Christopher, if you'd like to come up and answer a few questions for us as far as the amount of water. I know we're injecting into the city's aquifer and our alluvium and recovering that without being treated. So
there's quite a bit there. I was trying to.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of questions. So basically, first question, how many do we have on tap with the county to use? How many acre feet?
6,488 acre feet on an annual basis.
All right. And how will we be using that?
So oftentimes when people talk about our entitlement and how we use it, they speak on annual average terms. There are two limiting factors. One is that annual amount, and one is the direct diversion, or how much we can take at any one minute. In the summertime, we use very, very close to our full capacity on that pipeline because we're using it in multiple ways. He mentioned our urban water management plan. Our urban water management plan only references the direct potable use of Nassau water. It doesn't consider how we use it, for example, as drought buffer or as alluvial recharge like we're using in the Atascadero Basin. So in the summertime, we're recharging, up to 3,000 acre or 3,000 gallons per minute into the basin or into the alluvium. And then we're also directly treating another 2.5 million gallons a day through our water treatment plant. And that takes us very close to what our diversion limit is off of that pipeline. So in the summertime, we're very close to our full capacity on an annual average. We're not fully utilizing at this point in time our 6,400 acre feet per year, but we've got plans for that moving forward. He mentioned the blended water project. They said something that there was no infrastructure in place. I beg to differ. There's a significant amount of infrastructure in place, starting with the Nacimiento pipeline, and we're currently out to bid on the recycled water pipeline. Those are the two major pieces of infrastructure that are going to come together to provide the supplies necessary for entities other than ourselves to pursue this blended water effort. It's something that is being looked at as a key to balancing the basin overall, is to take those supplies that we do have that aren't being fully utilized and putting them to beneficial use. That's the whole idea. We want to get as much of that water into our basin as we can and use it to offset groundwater pumping.
Yeah, clearly if we use it, it's fine. But if we don't use it, we lose it. There's no banking.
That's not quite true. That's an oversimplification as well. It's just based on how our entitlement is off the reservoir. Essentially, our water is the first water in, the last water out. So, we've got the bottom portion of that reservoir. So once they hit min pool, they've really got to reduce the amount of releases that they're doing to a point where even beyond where they can actually physically make releases, we can still pull water out of that reservoir.
Well, I think what Cody was saying was that, again, it's not carryover year to year. It's per annual. Kind of an allotment.
Correct. We don't have carryover storage.
Exactly right. Yeah. So
but given the size of the watershed, how productive that watershed is, and given that essentially our water is the first in, last out, there's never been a year in the history of that reservoir that we couldn't have got our full entitlement.
Right. Yeah. That's why we got into the pipeline versus the state water project. That's much more safer. So, okay. Unless you saw something else that you wanted to address, I think we're probably okay. All right. Thanks, Christopher. All right. We'll move on then to any items, agenda items to be deferred. Manager Lewis, anything you have?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Brings us then to consent calendar. These are items that are considered routine but not requiring full discussion. Any member of the council wishing to pull an item or have questions directly on some items can do so, or the public as well. So first off with council. Does anyone have anything they want to bring? I do have a couple questions that I'm going to be asking on, well, let's just do it. Well, first off, go ahead, Dale, you're up there. You have a question you want to pull or talk about?
I like H7 pulled.
Number 7?
H7, yes. I7, whatever.
I7.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Should have put my glasses on.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
financial report.
Yeah, report for November 2023.
Yeah,
okay.
The most recent one.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, that's kind of what I was going to ask staff too. Actually, maybe Ryan can answer these real quick. 5, 6, and 7 have to do with Treasury report from September, October, and November of 2023. Why are they late, I guess, or why is it they grouped in a quarterly basis, or?
That's not necessarily it. It is on a we usually do interest allocation on a quarterly basis, but we do reconcile every month, and we make sure that all of our journal entries are posted. So typically we're about 68 weeks behind month-end close, and then obviously sometimes we get caught up. Every now and again, sometimes we buy an investment, and we have to kind of track and record it specialty. So we sometimes a little bit of back and forth with the consultant to make sure we got the right investment in, plugged into the right report so it flows through properly. So
okay.
Sometimes that takes a little bit longer.
All right. So then why don't you stand by? I'm going to have Dale come back up. Dale, you want to just ask your question then on item 7?
This is too important of a item to be put on the consent calendar. I don't care if you do a summary, but that is a very important item and should not be on the consent item. So if somebody wants to do a summary, I'll accept that.
Okay. Well, we're going to leave it unless you want to pull for full discussion. We'll leave it as is, as agendized. I had a further question on number 9, the approval of professional services for FEMA. I'm not sure, Ryan, would that be you? It looks like again. Is this because of they're just non-responsive and that we need extra help to do this?
Actually, it's more from the lessons learned from this last January storms and some of the continued education we got from our risk management conference as well. The FEMA process is, needless to say, tedious and long.
Yeah.
It does take a lot of staff time. And so what these consultants do, right, they're focused in on FEMA and only public assistance. And so they can come in, it can be reimbursed through FEMA, so no net cost to the city. And they're kind of the middle person between city staff and FEMA. And one thing we've kind of learned is FEMA tries to trick you and point you in corners of answering some of the questions they have so that some of your costs aren't reimbursable. These consultants are experts, and so they know those tricks and those games. And so, we're going to be able to maximize reimbursements through this mechanism without any additional cost to the city.
But essentially, this is for last year's work, or is it just like a retainer that we will use them in the future?
So this is actually moving forward on a moving forward basis. So the storms from last year are already done. We were already in the mix of the FEMA application now. And so because of the pain that we've gone through for the last year, if we do anticipate storms again for this year or any sort of major event in the future, we want to be able to utilize these contracts.
Okay, good. And then the last one I had a question on was for Christopher. The approval of the Fifth Amendment for the solar. And I would like to understand a little bit about this, and I talked to Ty about it also. When we approved that project, I distinctly remember saying that we were going to bring the revenue coming off of that project whenever it starts up to fund some sort of a facility, new facility for the city. So maybe we can bring more clarity, I don't know, on this. It's probably not really a set up for this. What I might want to do is just have it maybe re-agendized or something where we can get more deeper into the system. Ty, I'm not sure how you want to handle that.
Yeah, we can, I can seek to answer your question somewhat now, and we can dig into it deeper if you need to. So there is no actual revenue that's coming in from the solar farm. This is all savings, so it's going to offset. And so I know that there have been discussions in the past regarding projections. Christopher and his team did a great job of analyzing those and negotiating with our partners at Onyx regarding the implementation and installation of this. I think original estimates back when this project started exceeded $1 million. And I know there was discussions by various folks on using that money to obtain some sort of revenue bond to be able to finance those, but it isn't revenue. There is no revenue to be able to pull. It's cost savings. So we offset our PG&E purchases with solar.
Yeah, but there's a delta there, isn't there? Basically a difference in value.
There is. I think the original concept was somehow you can bond against the future savings, and they wanted to explore that idea. It's just nothing you can actually bond against, a reduction in expenses. It would be just a general revenue bond that it wouldn't be tied to any particular asset, for example. It would be, the general fund could somehow assume that liability. But in order to do something specifically related to the solar field, there was just really no financial product out there that we could find that could kind of do what some of those initial discussions were pointing towards. We do know that, some of the projections were a little high on what's significantly higher than what they actually are realizing to be. We brought an energy consultant on board, and it turned out that the actual savings was significantly less than originally anticipated. Now, that's not to say as we move forward, as energy prices go up, that we're not going to see an increase in savings over time, which I certainly think we will. But coming out of the gate, it's not close to those initial projections, unfortunately.
We still have it involved where at the end of 20 years, we buy it for $1, that type of thing, where the useful life is gone, but we can also keep it going.
That's correct.
That's still in the works.
Yeah, and our energy costs for those nominated accounts or benefiting accounts, as they're referred to, the cost for power is locked in. It's actually in terms of power purchase agreements, it's pretty favorable. It's just not as grand as we thought it was going to be. We're locked in at a fixed rate for energy for the next 20 years with no escalation. So there's no adjustments for inflation. We're going to pay today what we pay 20 years from now per kilowatt.
Mm-hmm. And the way basically this item is set up right now, you're asking for another extension. They're not quite done. It's not right to be turned on yet.
It's pretty much built right now. We're just waiting for final approvals from PG&E to get what they refer to as the PTO, or permission to operate. So the facility is intact. It's just final inspections right now and getting that final permission to operate. And we anticipate that permission to operate isn't going to take, I think it was March 31st they were requesting. It's more like going to be at the end of this month or the very beginning of next month that we'll be receiving the benefit from that solar field.
Very good. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I had. Chris, you have a question?
Thank you. Christopher, while you're there, sorry, if the contractor, this is also on 11, the solar project at the airport, if it's done by the end of the month in 30 days, then that's fine. I'm okay with that. But if it goes much beyond 30 days, is there going to be any kind of a penalty assessed to the contractor?
I don't know. I don't know if that's something we really want to pursue. I mean, the facility's built. We all experience the headaches with scheduling with PG&E. I know I've had things on the books now for 18 months, and I'm still waiting for inspection. So I don't know how far we would want to take that, given how close we are. Let's hope
it gets done by the end of the month. Yeah. Then I have one question on 12.
Absolutely.
Ditas, I read the abstract, and thank you very much. It looks good. It looks like the extra funding is to design. I read something about the at the intersection of Creston and Golden Hill. There's been a lot of accidents there. There's some barriers, cement barriers up there now. The photos that were included weren't at that intersection. There was some landscaping in front of the shopping center. So this is definitely to help do some traffic mitigation to prevent the accidents. Is that I'm given to understand?
Yes, it's the landscaping and addressing the safety of that T intersection where many have been running into that wall.
Okay, so it's both.
It's both, yes.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. Christopher, I've got a couple of questions on the solar as well. Now, I wasn't here, but when the process began, ordinarily when they're offering or when you're purchasing a solar project, they do should be able to project finitely what your savings would be. That's part of the contract obligation, is it not? Why is it not projecting out as it should have?
To be honest, I don't know how to answer that question. This started in 2015, well before my time. I don't know who generated the initial estimates of what those savings would look like. It's not something I was involved with at the time.
Ms. Roden, I can probably add a little context to this. What Mr. Eleckel is saying is exactly true, that, you know, it predated both of us, but when Christopher was assigned and accepted the promotion to the utilities division and was taking this on as a transfer with that, one of the first things we did, and as me as city managers, we wanted to understand what this project was, because there was a lot of speculation out there. So Christopher and I got together. He, to his credit, said, hey, I really want to take a pencil to these numbers and make sure, because there's a lot of different conversation. And so it was through Christopher and his team's proactive work that we were able to look at those assumptions and question some of them, and then refine them to where we knew exactly what we were going to be dealing with, so we could better estimate our expenses and any costs associated with this particular project. I can say, Christopher, it's north of $250,000 a year in savings that are projected, so it's no small amount that we're talking about, but it wasn't the amounts that were I think everybody was operating under assumptions back in 2015.
Well, hats off to you for looking at it a little closer, but I would have thought it would have been included in the contract as far as what the savings would be. They should have known at that point. We should have known at that point, really. And I know you weren't here, and neither was Ty, but.
What was included in the contract was what the cost of the power would be. And
right.
I think we extrapolated from there what we thought our savings would be.
Yeah, by old math, that you ought to be able to figure it out.
Right.
And if that isn't standing true today, I mean, no doubt about it, we're going to be in a far better position as time goes on from what we've seen with PG&E rates just in the last couple of years. And you're right about getting somebody out from PG&E. I don't know if everybody knows, but you can't walk into an office anymore. They've closed all their offices.
Let me just say one thing about PG&E rates. It really takes an expert to understand all the nuances to PG&E.
Especially when you include into solar.
And so, you know, my predecessors may not have fully understood the complexities associated with power pricing and all the charges that are rolled into that neat little bill. If you want to detail a bill on any one account, it's literally 30 pages long.
Right.
You really got to know what you're looking at, and I suspect that maybe the analysis was overly simplified, and it wasn't until we really did a thorough analysis that we were able to bet what the real savings would look like.
Thank you.
Also in defense too, I know that the original, I mean, this has been going on 8 years, I think, to this point, and the original contractor failed, and then another one came in and it was delayed. It was just a kind of a tough thing to get through. I know staff was pulling their hair quite often on
I don't want to throw too much shade on it. I think it's a great project, and I think in the long run, it's a good deal for the city. And you know, I think it's only the benefits are only going to increase over time as energy prices continue to rise.
Good. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Bring it back to council then. Any further discussion and or action? Look for consent items 1 through 12. We already did that. Yeah.
Mr. Hammond, can we just clarify? I believe Dale asked for item 7 to be pulled. I'm not sure if the discussion you had was sufficient to.
Well, he has the right to ask for a full discovery if he wants.
And that's what I need to clarify, if that's what he was asking for. That was mine and the city clerk's understanding, or whether or not Mr. Cornell's answers were sufficient.
Dale, is that the question is, was Ryan Cornell's explanation on that item good enough for your, on item 8 or 7?
Summary, it's like 240 pages.
We need you up there to record. Thank you.
I don't want to put 220 pages up on the screen.
You understand? Okay, thank you. So you're okay with what we've done so far, Dale?
Well, not really. I want the treasure summary.
Okay. Ryan? Do you have that available to put up on the screen for him?
I won't, but I will be able to speak of the treasurer's report. The treasurer's report is a state government code requirement, so that at the end of each month that the city's assets that it holds and investments are reported and available to the community. The actual legal requirement is not to actually present this to a actual city council. They should be made available on the city's website. Because historically we've always accepted the treasurer's report at city council, we've kind of carried that practice moving forward. However, when we do implement the transparency software, which is anticipated to be implemented later this year, that is one of the mechanisms that we're planning on moving off of the city council agenda and just make it available to any sort of resident at any time when they're made available. With that being said, as of November 30th, 2023, the city held about $137 million in total investments, of which about a market value was about 134.7. So we're still about a little less on the market value than cost basis. Okay. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions for Ryan? And to be clear, item 7 was just for November. You also had the same reports basically for October and September as well. So Dale just want to know about the November one. Okay. Anything further then, discussion-wise from council? All right, then we'll bring it back then for discussion and or action for consent items 1 through 12.
Mayor Hammond?
Councilman Gregory.
I'd like to approve items 1 through 12 on the consent agenda.
Strong seconds.
Okay, we have a first by Councilman Gregory and second by Councilman Strong. Any discussion? All right, we'll call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Roden?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
And City Manager Ty Lewis, if you would report on the items approved on consent, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1 is approval of the December 19th, 2023 Joint City Council Airport Commission special meeting minutes. Item number 2 is approval of the December 19th City Council meeting minutes. Item number 3, receipt of the Library Board body minutes for 12/14. Item number 4 is receipt of the warrant register. As discussed, items 5, 6, and 7 are the receipt of the treasurer's report for September, October, and November of 2023. Item number 8 is receipt of an annual development impact fee report for financial years 22 to 23. Item number 9 is we discussed, which is the approval of professional services agreement for the FEMA assistance and consulting. Item number 10 is approval of a side letter of agreement with Paso Robles Police Association. Item number 11 we discussed, which is the 5th Amendment to the Airport Solar Project Power Purchase Agreement. And the last and final item is approval of a change order to North Coast Engineering's contract for Creston Road Phase 2 project, in the amount of $123,128. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Very good. Thank you, Ty. We'll move on then to item K, open public hearings. And the first on that agenda is the second reading, title only of ordinance adopting 2022 California building codes and local amendments. And who has that?
I'm not Charlie today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Mayor Hammond, council and staff. I'm Devin Coonley. I am the Development Services Manager in the Community Development Department. And I am here today to talk about the second reading for the Building and Fire Code update. So thank you for having me. You did hear this same report from Charlie Maloney, my deputy building official, about a month ago. It is required that we do a second reading and public hearing. So this will all sound pretty familiar to you. So just to give you a little bit of background, the building code is on a 3-year cycle. So we start with the model code for the International Code Council. The next year, California takes that model code and adds in their elements, and then it becomes adopted statewide regardless on the first of the next year. So currently, the 2022 California Building Code was adopted statewide on January 1st, 2023. And then we also do have local modifications. So there's not a lot of changes, but We, as a city, are able to adopt specific standards that address climatic, geological, and/or topographical conditions specific to the city of Paso Robles. So in our last code change adoption, we had a lot of significant changes. Staff worked with the building liaison group. We held public workshops. We really tried to take a lot of the antiquated codes out of our local ordinance, things that have been adopted by the California Building Code over the years, just because it's been more stringent. So we were able to take out like 8 pages, and this was quite a process and nice. It was wonderful. So for 2022, our update, we do have some very minor changes. So for the coordination, we just changed everything from saying 2019 to 2022. We did have one item deleted, and it was just because it was absorbed by the 2022 code. So expiration dates of issued permits changed from 180 days to 1 year. So that was just something absorbed. One new thing that we have added, the building official, as long as it is a part of the local ordinance, is able to have a soils exemption. So this is for lightweight residential construction between 500 and 1,000 square feet, having options for our soils exemptions. And what is nice about that is another local jurisdiction does the same thing, so it does create consistency in our North County for developers. Lastly is plumbing pipe insulation. This was something that we requested was taken out during the 2019 update. We are adding it back in just for clarification. It is something that we're already allowed to require in the field, but it is for the climactic reasons. We just had really hard freezes here, so it's the 2-inch pipes, or smaller, right?
Yeah, 2 inches is small.
That are in unconditioned spaces need to be insulated. And that is something that we already require. This just helps provide some clarification. And again, we had our first reading December 5th, and we passed with flying colors. So our options are to introduce second reading of Ordinance 1133, adopting the 2022 California Building Code with local amendments pursuant to Government Code Section 6066, which is our recommendation, or to refer back to staff for additional analysis.
Very good. All right. Questions for Devin?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone from the public wishing to address this item? Okay. All right. Paul, I didn't ask you. Do you have anything to add to this?
Paul Patty, Fire Marshal, City of Paso Robles. No, I think Devin hit it really well.
Very good. Thank you. We'll bring it back to council then for discussion and or action.
Mayor Hammond.
Pro Tem Gregory.
I'd like to introduce the second reading of Ordinance 1133, adopting the 2022 California Building Code with local amendments pursuant to Government Code Section 6066.
Second by Bausch.
Okay, we have a motion by Gregory and second by Bausch. And any discussion on the item? All right, call for the question then, Melissa. Thank you.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Roden?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we will then jointly convene to the Paso Robles City Groundwater Sustainability Agency, which we have to call roll call again for that. So I guess we're all now directors of that. So Melissa, would you go ahead and call the roll call for Groundwater Sustainability Board?
Director Bausch?
Present.
Director Gregory?
Here.
Director Roden?
Here.
Director Strong?
Here.
Chairperson Hammond?
Here. So item, the topic for this one is going to be the approval of number 2, the memorandum of agreement regarding preparation of a groundwater sustainable plan for the Paso Robles groundwater basin, allowing the county of San Luis Obispo to serve as a contracting agent. Christopher Lacko, looks like you have it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and GSA Board. I'm here to present Amendment Number 2 to the Memorandum of Agreement regarding the preparation of a groundwater sustainability plan for the Paso Robles groundwater basin. This amendment seeks your approval to allow the County of San Luis Obispo to serve as a contracting agent alongside the City of Paso Robles on behalf of the Paso Basin Cooperative Committee, the PBCC, as it's referred to, and the represented GSAs. In 2014, the California State Legislature enacted the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA, requiring local management of groundwater resources. The City of Paso Robles, along with other local agencies, formed Paso Basin GSAs to collectively manage the basin. The PBCC, established through a Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA, oversees activities related to the groundwater sustainability plan development and implementation. Recently, the Paso Robles GSA Board approved a revised GSP to comply with SGMA requirements, outlining management actions to achieve sustainable groundwater management use. The MOA designates the City of Paso Robles as the sole contracting agent. To enhance flexibility and reduce the administrative burden on city staff, Amendment Number 2 proposes to include the County of San Luis Obispo as an additional agent. The proposed change will provide greater flexibility in contracting for consultant services, leveraging county resources and staff for contract management and administration. The recommended action is to approve and authorize the city manager acting jointly for the City of Paso Robles and the Paso Robles GSA to sign Amendment Number 2. This will enable the county to serve as an additional contracting agent, benefiting the PBCC in terms of available resources necessary to implement the GSP. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I have questions. Let's start off with Sheridan Roden, please.
I understand when I was at the meeting that this was primarily to kind of take the burden of staff time off the shoulders of the staff of Paso Robles and utilizing the staff from the county. I want to make sure that we're not giving up control. That's my main concern. Because we can, if it's, as we all know, consultants are just like expert witnesses sometimes. When your view is possibly not, you want the view to reflect your own view, your own ideology, and you hire people to do that. I want to make sure that we don't go down that road. I understand that they have the staff in place in order to take care, thank you, to take care of those things maybe better than we can. But I want to make sure we're not giving up our authority and our own control over some of these things.
Thank you for saying that, and I completely 100% agree with what you're saying. And we're very careful not to do that. As a GSA staff member, I represent our GSA kind of in a technical capacity, and I review everything that the county does. The PBCC is going to have to, or will typically be approving or recommending for approval any consultant and scope of work that comes before you. So typically the way it happens is, we might solicit a request for proposal. Before that request for proposal is even let out to the public, the PBCC will weigh in on it. We get those proposals in, for example, all the GSA staff will then review it and make a recommendation that would go back to the PBCC in order to affirm. Then each GSA then has to go back to their respective GSAs if there's any funding involved, for example, and get that approved through their GSA. So we're very aware of what it is that you're saying, and we do everything we can to make sure that the collective stays together. If a particular GSA does start to feel like they're not being heard, this whole thing could break down pretty quickly. So we do everything we can to make sure that we're speaking with one voice and that we're all on board and rowing in the same direction.
Well, that follows my next question. Does everyone have to accept the consultants that are utilized, or what percentage have to move forward?
To move forward, I believe I'd have to go back and look at the MOA. In fact, I have it. I can look it up and report back, but it might just be a 50% or more vote.
So it would
to
have,
hire a consultant.
so honestly, we could be outvoted.
We could be, if enough,
Very
if
easily.
enough of the other, but keep in mind that it still has to go back to the GSAs individually for approval. The PBCC doesn't really have authority to approve work yet. So we're kind of in this limbo. So that's why the wording on this thing is kind of weird. It's a MOA to prepare a plan. So this MOA was initially developed just to take us through plan completion. Amendment number 1 said, we're going to continue working under this MOA in a cooperative manner until we can develop a more permanent governance structure. And so that's something all the GSAs are discussing right now, and we're looking at alternatives to what it is that we're doing now. So yeah, it's a little clunky right now, having to get all these multiple approvals. At some point down the road, we're going to be something a little more elegant, a little more efficient.
We just need to be extremely vigilant on this.
Absolutely.
So Christopher, I had a question, side question from what Sharon was talking about. Again, the percentages of the members in our cooperative committee, basically, the city has only 15%, San Miguel's 3%, San Juan's 20%, you see. I'm looking at the MOA right now.
Yeah.
It's still one member, one vote, right? Or is it a percentage of that particular member?
It's a percentage. It's a weighted percentage based upon those percentages you were just
That's
reading.
what I was concerned about.
So we have a relatively small vote because we're a relatively small pumper in the basin.
Right. Right. So what I'm wondering is, I guess, coming back to this question tonight, is why do we need another purchaser?
Well, so the way this MOA was written, the city was the sole contracting agent. It was just to prepare the plan.
Right.
So we manage the consultants and the monies associated with preparing that plan. Now that the plan has been approved by DWR, we're now in the implementation phase of that plan. And so we're hiring consultants to perform various studies and works. So that would mean that the city of Paso Robles is then the contracting agent and the management for all the work associated with implementing the plans, and not just consultants, but also construction of actual work.
I see. So it's my understanding that San Miguel, the GSA for them, decided not to vote for this. Do you understand? Do you know anything about that?
Well, it goes back to Sharon's concern, is that it was initially brought before the PPCC in that any of the GSAs, given, whoever has capacity, could contract for work. And San Miguel didn't like that. They said, we really only want to deal with the county or the city in contracting work. So this amendment has been revised. So it went to the PBCC and it was shot down. This is the revised version that excludes the other GSAs and only allows the county GSA and the city GSA to contract. So it hasn't gone back to them yet. So hopefully it'll pass. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that last meeting. I think Sharon, I was down at the bottom of the pyramid in Egypt at the time, so I'm sorry, but it was one of those things where, I have some concerns about it too. And so, anyway, any other questions, Christopher?
So, thanks for presenting this. I have some concerns that I think go back not only to San Miguel's recent decision to not support this, notwithstanding what you just mentioned with the revisions. I hadn't heard anything about them coming forth and saying, okay, now we will get behind this. I haven't heard that, so that may be true. But if I go back a few years, if we all go back just a few years to 2016, and we look at A16 and Measure B16, those were defeated overwhelmingly. One of those had to do with forming a groundwater basin for Paso Robles, and the other had to do with funding that same groundwater basin. I think A16 funded or proposed about $1 million a year to operate the basin. When B16 was defeated, A16 was defeated. if B16 had been adopted, then that $1 million would have been assessed and that money would have gone to the county. That's kind of what I'm seeing here. And if 73% of the voters said no to B16 and over 77% said no to A16, I can't in good conscience get behind this. I hate to put the extra work on you guys. I truly do, but I feel a lot more comfortable. I trust you a lot more than I trust the county. With all the stuff that's happened at the county over the last few years, Christopher, you're my hero. I'm going to trust you. I want you to keep this. I just can't support this.
Okay, well, I don't know how to change your mind other than to say that, the other GSAs, we all have skin in the game, and we all have to trust each other to a certain extent if we're going to make this work. We're working as a cooperative. We trust, but we verify.
We have the control now. I would just as soon keep it.
Any other questions from council before I open it up to okay. Thank you, Christopher. We'll go ahead and open it up to the public then. Anyone wishing to address the item, please stand forward.
Thank you. Greg Graywall. I have the groundwater MOA right here. EPC is in violation of the MOA. You guys never voted on. San Miguel rejected them. LAFCO hasn't done their job. They got an egg on their face and they're embarrassed because they're not supposed to be there. You got 15% vote. San Juan got a 20% vote. Bruce Gibson gave EPC that's not supposed to be there 29% vote. Yeah. And the county has 32% vote. Those three agencies are going to outvote you and San Miguel every single time. This is not about, the county is supposed to represent the unincorporated area, and they gave away half of the votes from the people that Mr. Bausch was talking about that voted against having these special districts. These special districts have lied from the very beginning. They went behind the back of the cooperative group and tried to get water by spending $500,000 on 2 applications to the State Water Control Board to get water behind Nacimiento and the Salinas Reservoir that doesn't exist. And didn't tell the cooperative group anything about it until they got caught. They lied in the initial grant application, which I have a copy of right here, when they claimed you were supposed to spend the money matching funds on the basin, and they claimed, well, they spent money to create their water districts and to become GSAs, and so they should somehow be reimbursed. None of these agencies have kicked in anything. The county claimed they created 3 water districts, AB 2453, which failed, Shannon, San Juan, and EPC. At the same time, Shannon was claiming they created themselves, and EPC created themselves. And it said in the application instructions, you cannot have duplicate charges, and it has to be spent on the basin. They committed fraud right in the deal. And I wrote a letter to the state, and I talked to the state, and they said, well, we're going to give them the money anyway. If nobody is going to stand up and do what's right and follow the facts, then none of this is going to work. And by the way, when I spoke before, and you change acre feet into millions of gallons to make the number seem big, 2.5 million gallons of water is only 7 acre feet of water. So when I'm talking 6,488 acre feet, and you want to say 2.5 million, that's 7. That's 7 out of 6,488. I don't appreciate that. If we're going to talk acre feet, let's talk acre feet. If we're going to talk millions of gallons, let's talk millions of gallons. Let's talk in the same language. Let's don't do the thing where we put 3 walnut shells and we try to find the P. That is unacceptable after 11 years of being involved in this. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Welcome, Dale.
Dale Augustin. I've been following this like Mr. Graywall has been doing since the start. And Mr. Bosch is correct. We defeated a couple of bills that was going to put the control into the hands of a few rich people. Now, the county, what they did was they did a moratorium on well drilling to try to help with the alleged shortage of groundwater and the basin. And what they did was they had to have a second reading, of course. Well, all the rich boys went out and bought permits before the second reading took effect. And then twice there's been small farmers trying to get the moratorium lifted because it had a sunset clause. Twice the county has extended the moratorium against the wishes of all the majority of the farmers. Now, you want to put all that control in the hands of Mr. Gibson? No, he's even trying to get away with Prop 13. I don't think he should do that.
Cody?
I don't know. I try to follow the rules. My compliments to you, Ms. Roden, Mr. Bosch. You certainly understand.
Cody, your name, Cody Ferguson.
Cody
right?
Ferguson,
There you go.
Paso Robles, California. You certainly understand where you find yourself. Let me add a little something to that. This city, right now, at least in some of our views, is in violation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, more so than any other agency in the GSA. More so. Why you want to give away local control over this circumstance to the county, by the way, who doesn't really have the staff that people seem to be imagining. There's one guy down there that they've recently hired. But this amendment to add the county in, as you can see, will result in Paso Robles losing all control because you can be outvoted. Not just by the county, but by the significant other groups that have been allowed to become members of the GSA. They shouldn't have been. They're illegal water districts, 2 of them. And they shouldn't, this is a legal water district. Paso Robles is a legal water district. We don't call it that, but I'm sure that when people's bills come every month, they realize that it is. The bottom line here is you don't want to vote for this because, number one, you're supposed to have a majority vote to pass it, which you're probably going to be able to do. But San Miguel got it right. They don't want to give up local control. Not even the small amount of local control that they have. You have much more. And frankly, he's in the room. Mr. Alacal is perfectly capable of advising you correctly. However, I disagree with him on this issue. You should retain jurisdiction over this GSA. It's called a cooperative committee. It's anything but. I think some of that's been outlined for you about some of the things that have been done behind everybody's back. We don't get to find out about it till we get there. Nobody lets us know in advance. So, Mr. Bosch, Ms. Roden, you've accurately assessed exactly what's going on and what this is an attempt to do. It's to wrestle away controlling interest in the GSA and anything going forward. Thank you.
Gary, welcome.
Gary Lair, I've already introduced myself. I just want to say that when it comes to these water issues, when people ask us, the executive committee or the central committee, who we turn to for advice, Greg is one of the chief speakers. We take him seriously, and and we recommend that people talk to Greg if they really want to understand water issues. So I just want to say, really highly respect Greg. He's very highly respected in the party and with people who know him and people who are conversant with water issues. I studied this a bit because I worked on the Bruce Jones's campaign, and especially knowing the present composition of the Board of Supervisors, I frankly don't want to give them jurisdiction over anything that we can possibly prevent giving them any kind of say so on. They're not responsive to public needs. They've caused a lot of controversy, and Bruce Gibson is, he has a progressive ideologue, and his ideology is for government control, and frankly, it's against the interests of the average citizen. But as a conservative Republican ideologue myself, I am just plain against giving up control. I think we should be in control of our own destiny, make decisions at a local level as possible. So, I may not know the nuts and the bolts of the issue as well as Greg or Eric Gorham or Cody does, but I think that they are spot on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep. Welcome.
Good evening. Murray Powell, I'm Templeton resident. And before I start the public comment, I have a question. I need clarification. I'm on one of the subcommittees of the PBCC, and Mr. Eckel made a comment, maybe I misunderstood him, but I'd like a clarification where he was saying that this proposed recommendation up on the board was a revision of a prior one. And that is all news to me, because I've been to every PBC meeting, and the last one they had where this was discussed was back in end of October, and I believe Ms. Roden was there, and I think Mr. Bush was there. And so I'm not sure what the revisions were, but I don't think there was ever any public comment, any public notice or anything. So if there was a revision, before my comments, I would like to hear what the revisions were from Mr. Eccles.
Let's go ahead and get your question, though. We'll bring Christopher up in a minute, but go ahead. We'll get that question answered.
Okay. So my comment is, and Mr. Eccles is correct, the PBC has no power. That entity has no power. I think Ms. Reardon was there and Mr. Bush was there when this came up back in October, where everybody agreed that that committee in their own hearings have no power, even if they propose and vote on certain resolutions. There's no effect to that. Then Mr. Eccles was correct that each of the individual GCAs, including you, have to convene your own publicly noticed GCA meetings each to go through and approve anything on this PVC situation. So I'm confused. Oh, and the other thing I want to mention is it's totally unclear to me. So that the PVC or the GSA group has grants from, I think it was 7.5 million or maybe 9, I can't remember. There's absolutely no clarification when spending money. And in the October meeting, I even requested that there be an accounting of what has been spent by the group. And that has not happened that I'm aware of, but I'm also not clear, and I don't think anybody is clear, of how much money what can be used for grant money and what should be used for actual costs that each GSA has to fund for the different activities that have to be done by this whole group. And none of that, I believe, is evident at this point tonight.
Okay, so we'll get some answers for it. Anyone else? Public comment? Okay, we'll bring it back then to council.
Mr. Mayor, before you proceed, if I could just clarify a couple of
Yes.
things. So there were some questions about the voting. Section 4.8 of the MOA sets out that any action or recommendation considered by the cooperative committee shall require the affirmative vote of 67% based upon the percentages that we'd already discussed. So it's not a 50%. I just want to clarify that. And then there was another question about sort of the process. There are provisions in here about how right now the city acts as the contractor and what they have to go through, getting the approval from the committee and the GSAs and those sorts of things when there's spending involved. So those would all go forward and apply to the county also. It wouldn't be a changing of the rules that we've been operating under. It would just be applying these rules to both the city and the county if they were to be the contracting agency for something that the group needed.
Okay. Yeah, Christopher, let's get to this question real quick. The gentleman last asked about the revision to the MOA.
Yeah, exactly when this went, it was several months ago, it went in front of the PBCC, and it was a motion that was shot down. And that was to allow all the other GSAs, and I'm not sure exactly how it was presented, but it was discussed at the PBCC meeting, and it didn't have enough support to allow every GSA to be a contracting agent.
Right.
So that's where this revision came from. The county was talking with San Miguel to see if they would, be willing to accept them as an additional contracting agent. And they kind of got the initial indication that it was a high probability.
Okay. And with the percentage that Elizabeth just mentioned, the 67% to the whole cooperative committee, what would happen if this council voted no tonight?
Then that would mean that the city is then going to be responsible for doing all the work associated with plan implementation.
Okay. But as far as control on how things are done, it's still going to be a cooperative direction, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. But we'll be managing all the contracts.
At this point, then, with the affirmative vote tonight, then at least the work is still split between Paso and the county.
Correct. And remember, we're not giving up control. The PBCC has no authority over this GSA. They make recommendations.
Yeah. It's just basically you're doing direction from what the cooperative committee as a group is telling you what to do.
The cooperative committee is exactly.
Right. All the different GSAs.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Strong.
Yeah, part of my discussion, actually the discussion brought questions to my mind. Because I was listening to what you were saying before about we would then be also responsible for building all of this stuff in all of the different members, not just in our own?
If we're the only contracting agent.
Yes.
For example, there's been very little construction going on so far. There have been some wells that have been installed, a handful of wells. We refer to them as the SEP wells. And yes, the city was responsible for advertising, for bidding, for construction management, everything. As we move forward, there's going to be more projects that are coming forward. Some of them will be funded in, cooperation with individual GSAs, some through the PBCC likely, and likely those will be grant funded.
And will this cost us any additional money if we are the managing agency?
Yes, it would.
And where would that money come from?
That's a good question. That's not something we budgeted for. Again, this original MOA was set up just to prepare the plan, not to implement the plan. We decided we'd carry this MOA forward until we developed a more permanent governance structure. And that's something that's underway right now, is evaluating different options.
So part of my question would be, if we're the managing agency, though, then if we're going to do work in one of our member organizations area, can we not bill them for the costs?
It doesn't quite work like that. So some of these projects will span multiple agencies' boundaries, for example.
Okay.
It's not whoever's GSA a particular effort falls in is the one that's responsible.
But you're not saying, I hope, that Paso Robles out of our general fund, for instance, would have to build the infrastructure for San Miguel?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. No. What we're talking about here is contract management and administration primarily. not funding of projects.
Okay, would that take additional staff on your part?
Yes, it would.
And who would pay for that staff?
We would.
Out of our general fund?
I'm not sure how that would work yet.
Thank you.
I didn't anticipate this raising this kinds of concerns, because in fact, as a cooperative, we're going to need to work together. We're going to have to share the burden. This shouldn't all fall on one agency to do.
Right. That's a question I have for you. Is this time sensitive to the point where why are we asking to do this now versus after the MOA has been revised?
I'll tell you, because honestly, this is the way we're operating. Is the county and the city are splitting duties right now, and we want to bring the MOA really in line with how it is that we're currently operating.
How far out is that revised MOA at? I mean, are you talking weeks, months?
Oh, it's going to be months, I think, until we can come up with something that we all agree upon. My concern is, if we do, have some more formal agreement that we put in place, and it speaks to Sharon's concerns, is this GSA still maintaining its authority over our boundaries?
Yeah, we do.
We don't want to give up decision-making authority, so having any future decision-making authority being transferred to the PBCC, I see the city only supporting that in very limited kinds of roles. When we do have projects that are built and operating, I see the PBCC as being those, maybe managing those basin-wide efforts, making those kinds of like operation and management decisions of infrastructure. For example, if there's a blended water project that takes Nazi water, that takes recycled water, that crosses multiple GSA boundaries, who's really going to be responsible for operating and maintaining that? To me, that seems like the perfect thing that the PBCC would do, right?
Okay, Mr. Bausch, you had a question.
Well, an observation, just to Mr. Strong's point, if we do take the lead role, or if by some decision, we split that with the county, the division of labor or contractor oversight would be split, and I imagine that we see this in section 6.7, what those percentages would be. You would go back and we would assume that leadership role, and then we would keep track of staff's time, and then we would allocate that along these same percentages. The city at 15.2, San Miguel 3%, San Juan 20.2, county 32.3, and the EPC at 29.3. That's, I mean, in public administration that I've been involved with, that seems to be the fair and practical way to divide that cost.
Yeah, staff time is not being divvied up amongst GSAs. When the city of Paso Robles does contracting or the county is managing efforts, we're not reimbursing. The other GSAs are not reimbursing the county for those efforts.
So if we could put that in there and make that a stipulation.
Provided 100% of any amendments to this MOA require unanimous vote on behalf of all the other GSAs. And I don't see us really amending this any further until we get a more permanent governance structure in place.
I think coming back to the point, what reason this original MOA was formed the way it is currently, it was that there wasn't a whole lot that we were going to have to do. Now that we're getting into it, we're out of 15%, we're carrying all the load basically for the work that has to be done for the GSA. So to me, without losing any authority to say where things are going, I would rather have, more than one doing this work. But Sharon, go ahead.
Going to that one meeting, I need to be educated. I do not know but a smidgen of what I should know about the GSA, granted. But the feeling I got, it's in its infancy. They don't even have a budget. Nobody has a budget. One would think that an organization of any type would need to start with a budget. it concerns me that I know it's putting on your back, and maybe we need to address it a different way of who splits what. But if you cross boundaries of a district, that district isn't responsible for that line. The point of origin and the ending point is responsible. The benefactors of that, those are the ones who pay for that project, not the ones in between unless they have a turnout. So it's the end user that is the benefit for that. But none of that is being thought about at this point because there's not even the simplest budget.
So there's so many pieces to this that are in process at the moment. And we are working on a budget. We're working on our annual budget. We're working on developing, a cost of service study, essentially, a rate study. That's going to take in, now that we have this plan finally approved and we have a list of projects, and we know that we're going to need to generate revenue in order to start implementing some of these things. We know we're going to seek grant revenue and to help offset some of these costs. We need to understand what all those pieces are, what all the key projects are, who all the key players are going to be before we can put together a budget, right? That stuff is starting to form up now, and we're in the process of developing that as a cooperative. This is new. We're right out of the gate. I mean, we just recently got the DWR approval, and we're moving forward, and we're moving quickly. It might not seem like that from somebody from the outside, but there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes.
There's a lot of moving pieces.
There's a lot of moving pieces.
And I know you made the statement, you trust, but just take some trust and you verify. And again, admittedly, I don't know everything about it, but there has been verification of how certain entities act or react. There have been Brown Act violations, and there's been a replacement of an individual on the GSA, and their alternate is a staff member, which in most cases, staff takes direction from the supervisor. I don't think that's an adequate replacement for a supervisor or an alternate. I worry about those things. And it's just, if I had absolute assurances that it couldn't be wiggled around a different way, I'd be all for it because it is an awful lot to take on. But I worry about giving up control.
I understand that. I understand that perspective. And I could only reiterate that I share it, and I do everything that I can to ensure that control stays local.
But if you give it up, you don't have the control. That's the problem.
The action tonight is not giving up any control.
No.
There's no control being given up by this action tonight. All decisions still have to be made by the GSA. They're going to be making recommendations.
But we talked about 67%.
So their votes. So if they want to hire a consultant that's going to do work, they can reject it. So basically what they have is they can shoot down a particular consultant with their vote. They can't require us to pay for any work without your consent. They can probably stop something from getting to you. It's happened in the past where we've tried to hire a consultant and the majority of the PBCC voted against that consultant. I, for one, voted in favor of it, but it was shot down. So that consultant didn't move forward. So they can hinder progress in some ways, but they can't force this GSA to do anything. Not under this MOA.
So they can't. So we are not able to hire a consultant on our own?
Yes.
We could.
Yes.
Okay.
We could hire, if we want to go it alone, that's always been an option.
Right.
We can go it alone, but the idea is this is something that's going to take cooperation. We don't live in little bathtubs that we can control. This is an interconnected aquifer that we all have a stake in. And we all have to be doing our part. And the best way to ensure that that gets done is that we all work together. And we try to do it as transparently as possible. Sometimes some GSAs falter. But let me tell you, they are quickly called on the carpet. Overall, I feel like, there's decent trust amongst the GSAs. I'm not saying there haven't been problems or hiccups, But overall, it's working much better than I imagined it would. And I think our best chance for success in meeting the DWR deadlines is to ensure that we continue as a cooperative. To go it alone would be a huge ordeal, and it would be like starting over.
Yeah, the way I see this, Sharon, again, it's not it's not going to be a problem for sharing the load that has to be done by the whole cooperative committee. If we were giving away some of our authority, I would have a problem with it. We're not doing that.
We're not.
We're not doing that.
We
Each
could opt out
individual.
if we choose. If we see that we're losing authority and control, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
That we could opt out.
Yeah.
Right.
Each individual GSA in the cooperative committee has their own rights to their authority. That's what it is. Ground Sustainability Authority or agency. We have our own area to take care of. Each one of those do. But we come together and strengthen numbers when we were submitting a plan, GSP, to the state for this whole region. Strengthen numbers instead of each one of us doing. And that's really what the cooperative was all about. Now that we've got the plan approved, we're still working together to do projects that the cooperative might be able to garner more grant funding to do versus just one of us. So is that kind of the plan here, that, simpler terms. So strengthen numbers, but we still have our own rights. And again, what I see here is that the whole cooperative is putting everything on Christopher to do all the work at this point when it starts to get built up with no way to, for any support other than our own pocketbook paying for it. So if we can spread out the workload between county staff and our staff and still retain authority, I don't have a problem with this at this point. I just wish we had the MOA revised, I think that's really a step that we really need to jump on.
That's where I think we're going to have real discussions about authority. If we enter into an MOU, it's not going to be too unlike the Waste Management Authority, right? Where they actually have some real authority. When we come back to you with revised governance, we're going to be relinquishing some of our authority at that point. And that's, I think, where we're going to have some real discussions about how far we want to go.
Right.
It's not here with this.
Mr. Mayor, if I can clarify too,
Yes.
one of the provisions that is not being changed by this MOU or by this amendment is section 4.9, which clarifies that the creation of the cooperative committee shall not be construed as a delegation of any powers or authorities, and all powers and authorities of each individual party, meaning our GSA, shall reside with that party. So we explicitly retained our authority under 4.9. As Mr. Aleckl said, we may have to address that when we get to the amendment to the MOU and the actual implementation of the plan, but currently that's what the MOA says, and this amendment doesn't change that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm satisfied personally. I was just concerned a little bit about San Miguel's GSA and why they maybe didn't understand it quite maybe the way we are at this point, but Chris Boucher.
So, all fair points. I get that. But we're basing this on two entities that may or may not be legal, that represent 20.2 and 29.3% of the voting authority, respectively. That's 49.5%.
Yeah. And what we've
And
been
if those
told,
if those end up being not properly formed, then what? I think we have a lot of questions to answer before we can go through that.
Yeah, we've always had that question as to legality of San Juan and the EPC. Can you address that at all?
I'm really not in the position to address the legality of those
it's one of
GSAs.
those legal questions that is over our heads, so to speak, and who's going to make a decision on that. And we've heard from all kinds of angles that they're not, some are, and so it's really difficult. At this point, they've been accepted into the cooperative committee, and they are sharing in the cost, for everything. So, whether it gets determined that it's not a legal entity, I'd like to see that happen. Get a final determination. Again, that's what we've all
Mr.
said.
Mayor. Yes, I think that those are questions that are totally separate from this issue.
Yeah, it is.
And I think those questions are going to be addressed by others. I believe it's not our authority to address those particular issues. The other thing that I'm taking into consideration, very honestly, is I know where Christopher came from, as well as another member of our staff. And they already know a lot of the bigger picture. They've had to deal with it from the higher authority point of view. So they understand more in this area of water than we ever will. And I have to respect my staff because I know his background. And when he gives us an opinion in this regard, I have a lot of respect for that opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think if there's any further, Steve, go ahead.
So Christopher, if Mr. Gibson comes in and tries to pull a fast one on us, how do we stop him? That's a question about related to this. So we have the power to not accept his direction if we don't want to go there.
That's correct. You saw a big effort on his part early on that failed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Equity statement and all that kind of crap. So.
As long as we can stop him from doing something to screw us up, I'm okay with that.
We brought it before you to consider as a GSA, and you said no.
Okay. Any other questions in from staff? We're all pretty well good to go. So, all right, we need direction and/or action on the item.
And just so we can clarify, so this is a joint resolution of both the GSA and the city council. So even though your name's only going to be called once, you'll be voting twice. So if you want to vote yes as a city council member, but no as a GSA member or reverse, please clarify. But we're going to assume that you're going to vote the same for both acting as a GSA member and a council member. And so it'll be recorded as both.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion?
I was looking at Mr. Gregory to make the motion, but if not, I don't have my full agenda in front of me, but I will move the staff recommendation to act jointly as the City Council and Paso Robles Groundwater Sustainability Agency Board to approve and authorize the city manager on behalf of the City of Paso Robles and the Paso Robles GSA to sign Amendment Number 2 to the Memorandum of Agreement regarding preparation of a groundwater sustainability plan for the Paso Robles Groundwater Basin to allow the County of San Luis Obispo to serve as an additional contracting agent on behalf of the PBCC, Paso Robles, the Paso Basin Cooperative Committee.
Motion by Strong. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Gregory. I'll call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
No.
Councilmember Roden?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Or, sorry, not unanimously. It passes 4-1.
Okay. All right. Then we'll go ahead and then adjourn the Groundwater Sustainability Agency Board and bring it back and reconvene to the Paso Robles City Council meeting and let the record say that we're all here. So we'll go ahead and then move on to item O, discussion items. First is fiscal year 23-24 first quarter report, El Camino Homeless Echo Memorandum of Understanding. Angelica.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Angelica Fortin, the Community Services Director. On August 16, 2022, you approved a supplemental memorandum of understanding with the El Camino homeless organization known as ECHO Paso Robles to provide them with $444,000 in funding over a 2-year period, so long as ECHO continues to meet the criteria outlined in the MOU and provides quarterly service and financial reports to City Council. ECHO has completed their first year of reporting and is here tonight to provide their first report of this second fiscal year. In addition, we have brought before you an amendment to the current MOU with ECHO. On July 18, 2023, you directed staff to reconvene the ECHO Ad Hoc Committee to reconsider ECHO's funding request in light of a change in service model. At that time, ECHO was transitioning into a predominantly 90-day shelter program with 45 of their 50 shelter beds assigned to the 90-day program. This change reduced the number of beds available for the nightly lottery program. City staff considered this a significant change due to the impact to the community action team's ability to engage with and compel homeless individuals to seek shelter services. The committee met twice and included participation by Mayor Hammond, Councilman Gregory, our city manager Ty Lewis, police and emergency services personnel, and myself. The group was able to come to a consensus, and the committee's recommendations are reflected in the amendment document before you tonight. Do we have, oh, thank you. The recommendations are summarized here. ECHO will maintain 5 nightly lottery beds and 45 90-day temporary shelter program beds. ECHO will provide 1 nightly single occupancy crisis room available exclusively for placement by the Paso Robles Police Department or Paso Robles Emergency Services Fire Department. The placement must be made by midnight and individuals must meet standard behavior. The placement of couples or families is not guaranteed, but shall be contingent upon what is required of ECHO by its insurance. And then lastly, it was also recommended that ECHO reduce its quarterly stakeholder meetings to take place twice a year. This was due to low attendance, as evidenced in the reports ECHO has regularly submitted. Instead, they will provide surrounding stakeholders with a monthly newsletter report that will report on operations, provide statistical information, and provide contact info to report concerns. Staff's recommendation tonight is that City Council receive and file ECHO's fiscal year 23-24 first quarter report and direct staff to disperse payment in the amount of $55,500, approve the First Amendment to the ECHO supplemental MOU, and disband the temporary ECHO ad hoc committee. With that, I'm happy to take any questions or to invite Austin Solheim, ECHO's Director of Operations and Development, to provide their report.
Okay, any questions from Angelica first? Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, this is a technical question.
Yes.
Can you go back to the previous diagram? On the first line, shouldn't that say 65?
Oh, with the additional 20 beds.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know it's a different source of funding, but it is part of the overall project. I don't want to have to go and amend it again.
The MOU actually lists that ECHO would sustain 50 beds. So out of those 50 beds, 90 would be 45 of those 50.
So we'll be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Any other questions? Sharon? Fred? Christopher? Yes. Okay. Wendy, if you would like to maybe address or staff? Yeah. Austin, go ahead.
Good evening, City Council members, also City staff and community members from Paso Robles. My name is Austin Solheim. I'm the Director of Operations and Development for ECHO Paso Robles. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you guys so much. It's been an incredible year in 2023. Amazing to work with our partners. Before we begin, I just always like to point out that if there are any questions from the community, that anything that they would like to know about ECHO, that they are more than welcome to visit our website. There is an email that they can address, and also my contact information is available on there for any questions that anyone may have, or if they would like to have a tour or see any of the amazing things that we are doing in ECHO, Paso Robles or Atascadero. To begin with our presentation, I always like to point out just kind of the funding breakdown, that 100% of the funding that ECHO receives from the city of Paso Robles goes directly towards supporting staffing of our Paso Robles campus. The funding is instrumental in providing the services that help those facing homelessness transform their lives and get back in housing. The funding that is provided by the city of Paso Robles covers about 25% of the staffing costs associated directly with our Paso Robles campus. This was before the 20 additional beds were added. So this staffing cost and the report that I'm giving you today was directly correlated to the 45 90-day beds and the 5 night-by-night. Now that we have increased, we have received additional funding from the county to support additional staff. So that is not coming from the funding that is coming directly from the city of Paso Robles. On our quarterly shelter program data that you see before, you can see our numbers of our total night-by-night shelter stays, as well as some unduplicated nightly shelter stays, and you can see the consistent number of our 90-day emergency shelter beds. This report is directly from September through November. Those additional 20 beds that we have mentioned went into effect in December and are now fully operational. Our consistent stays, so next time when you see this report starting in December, you'll see that reflection of actually 65 of the 90-day beds specifically, maintaining the 5 night-by-night beds on a regular basis. For our quarterly documented success, one of the ways that we document success through our program is the number of individuals that are staying in our program that are getting back into housing in our community. As you can see, this quarter, we had 41 individuals and families with children get back into stable housing, as well as 16 individuals that got employment while staying with us through either our workforce development programs or locally here in the community. And these numbers directly correlate just to our Paso campus specifically. For both of our campuses, it was much higher. In fact, in 2023, through both of our ECHO campuses, 201 individuals and families with children were housed, and over 90% of the individuals that went through that program and got into housing stayed in housing in 2023 as well, which is pretty incredible. One of the questions that constantly comes up is who is ECHO serving in our community? This is a reflection of data that we took to really collect data on how many individuals that were being served out of our Paso campus that stayed in an encampment in the Salinas Riverbed. In the month of September, when we collected this data, it showed that 71.3% of the clients utilizing our services had stayed in an encampment at one time in the Salinas Riverbed. Just to show that there are multitudes. We are serving families, we're serving seniors, we're serving veterans, we're serving, but the majority of the folks that we are serving through our services at ECHO Paso Robles are directly coming from the encampment and coming from Riverbed. Additional ECHO program and referral data, as you can see, we have dinners through our nightly meal program that we run on a nightly basis. We also provide a community shower program, provide showers to the community Monday through Friday. We have referrals to mental health services, drug and alcohol, other sources. And one of the unique things that we're able to offer is laundry services on site as well. That is for our residents and also for our outreach clients as well. So someone that might not be staying with us that needs to utilize that service, we do offer that for those residents or clients, I should say, as well. As we have mentioned, on October 31st, 2023, ECHO's executive team presented financial ask to the SLO County Board of Supervisors to support the opening of 20 additional 90-day emergency shelter beds at the Paso Robles campus specifically, and the Board of Supervisors voted 5-0 in support of these additional services. Staff was hired and trained, and the 20 additional beds began opening in December of 2023, and at this time are fully open and operational. This brings the total number of emergency shelter beds at the Paso Robles location to 70, 65 dedicated to that 90-day emergency shelter program, and 5 still dedicated to the night-by-night emergency shelter program. This number does not include the 1 additional bed that we have talked about in the additional MOU as well. Additional programs that we run through ECHO that we definitely want to highlight is, some of our partners that come on site. This is a collaboration. We have become a place where our partners can come and offer services, everything from mental health services to drug and alcohol services to mental health to workforce development. One of the unique things that we were able to do too is actually adopt the Black Oak Drive corridor. We go into that a little bit more, but just to highlight a few of our programs as well, we are offering a multitude of different programs to really try to add the stability and foundation of those that we're serving. We're excited to add a couple of new programs this quarter. One of my favorites was the Paso Robles City Library. To highlight a lot of what they have been doing with their outreach, they actually have been coming on site and offering support to families and individuals experiencing homelessness in our community. One of the really unique ways that they've been doing is they actually created bags for some of our families that were moving in to say when a child comes into our program, providing them with a small package that has a book in it, something to make them feel a little bit more at home, as well as a blanket, and then also providing training for their staff. So our staff has been working in conjunction with the library to really talk about resources. So when they are talking to someone here at the library that may be in need of our services, they know how to direct. And now we actually have ECHO flyers that are located in the library as well that the staff can refer to and really connect with our outreach case management to come and offer services directly to someone in a place that they feel safe. We love to provide a mix of programs that are focused in education, workforce development, resource and well-being. One program that we did want to highlight on the previous picture is a partnership with Trader Joe's to provide a flower arrangement class for our residents. If you'll look on the top right of that screen, just one thing that I want to highlight is our programs really are to help not just build that foundation, but also to create kind of stability in someone's life. So this is a resident, the gentleman in that picture is a resident of our program going through that 90-day program who was able to reconnect with his family while staying with us and invite his family to come and participate in this class. rebuilding that relation, his connection to this community, and creating the foundation for him to eventually move back into stable housing. Some of our neighborhood collaborations that we wanted to highlight. So ECHO's Good Neighbor program has been in a full effect with the residents of the 90-day program, working with staff weekly to clean up trash in the Black Oak neighborhood. We have recently even adopted the street. So when you drive down the Black Oak corridor, you'll actually see that ECHO has adopted that entire area. We go out about 3 times a week. It's led by our shelter manager and actually residents that are currently staying with us in our 90-day program. They collect trash all the way up the Black Oak Drive corridor, all the way basically to the Mid-State Fair. We also hold our neighborhood stakeholders meeting. Our last one was held on Thursday, October 26th. We had representation from the City Council, police, but unfortunately no business partners from the Black Oak Corridor Drive were in attendance. We continue to collaborate and support our partners from the neighborhood to find mutual solutions. We continue to work with them in case any scenarios come up and try to find creative solutions to try to help that area as much as possible. We do operate a 24-hour line. However, our team has not received any calls on that 24-hour line. We do go out and engage with our local business owners and individuals experiencing homelessness to assist in outreach efforts and address any concerns. I always like to end our presentations with just a little bit of a highlight of some of the success stories and kind of what success looks like at ECHO. One of the highlighted stories that I wanted to point out is Maria. Maria is a single mother who was in a unfortunate, tragic situation where her and her son found herself homeless in our community. This is an individual that hadn't held a job in quite a while, been staying home and raising family, and was able to work with our case management team. And really the goal for this individual was seeking employment. This is an individual that unfortunately didn't have necessarily the job or the resume or the pedigree or different pieces, but through working through some of the ECHO programs and actually utilizing some of the chores that we hold around having a hospitality industry, was able to use the skills that she learned to apply for jobs locally here, and even was able to be recognized as Employee of the Month at the job that she is currently working, which is pretty amazing. One of the things that really was unique to this situation too was just being able to be a single mom, balancing work, and also those school drop-offs as well. The second story that I wanted to highlight for you is a young gentleman. His name is Nick. Before joining ECHO, Nick faced challenges of living in parking lots and sleeping in his car. And his path to stable housing wasn't easy at all, but working full-time and sleeping in the car, he was able to maintain that job the entire time where he was staying at ECHO and while he was homeless. He really was able to utilize ECHO as a lifeline to find that stability and save up his income and money so that he could apply for rentals here locally. Nick was really supportive in our community and really just expressed his gratitude for being able to focus on himself while staying at ECHO and really tap into some of the program that helped him to deal with some of the traumas that had led to him being homeless in the first place. And today, Nick has a place of his own to call home. Now that we are in 2024 as well, if you guys do ever need to see kind of what's going on, we do post a weekly every single Sunday, a success story of someone that has gone through our program, either in Atascadero and Paso Robles, that has gotten back into housing. One of the things that I do want to highlight is that this year in 2024, as you can see Nick putting his handprint up in blue, we are doing our new handprints, and we just had a family of 4 up in Paso Robles that put orange handprints on the wall. Has nothing to do with the Atascadero High, don't worry. Orange is just ECHO's secondary color. I just don't look good in an orange jacket. So I just want to thank you guys if you do see that, and you'll start seeing those success stories coming in our next report. And I'm here as well as our CEO, Wendy Lewis, to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Any questions for ELCO staff? I had a question, Austin, real quick. With regard to, remember, we were doing that night to night and the CAT team availability to give you a resident. How's that working? And is it, are you still able to fill it if they don't, that type of thing? How is that element working?
So we're working with the CAT team regularly on a basis right now. That additional room is part of the MOU addition that we're talking about. So currently right now, we are working with the CAT team, and when they identify someone, we're trying to get them into our night-by-night program, really focusing on adding that. This room would be an additional service. So that's not something that we've implemented at this time to be able to do that, but we're looking forward to continuing that collaboration and using ECHO as a tool for the CAT team when they come across that emergency situation.
I thought we were an agreement, we were going to be holding that room available to a certain point in time during the day, and then you would go ahead and fill it as normal.
You're correct, and that's what the amendment tonight will activate.
I
So
see.
we haven't begun that program yet. If you are in agreement, then ECHO will begin offering that room for RPD and fire personnel.
Okay, very good, and thank you. All right, no other questions from council, then we'll open up to the public. Anyone wishing to address the council on this item, please come forward. Mr. Lair.
My name is Gary Lair. I've already introduced myself twice. This is actually the issue that I wanted to speak about tonight. I used to go to Atascadero Bible Church. The church was very supportive of ECHO, and we've supported them financially in the past. But I want to say we cannot band-aid the issue of homelessness. We already know that the state of California and the federal government are spending over $45,000 a year per homeless person. I would hate to see the city do anything more than allow or have memorandums of understanding with private agencies. I don't think we should be spending $200,000 to hire somebody to deal with the problem. Already too much money is going to it and it's being wasted. What we need to do is address the root causes, and the root causes, and I studied this because I worked with Bruce Jones on his campaign on this, and the position that we took is that substance addiction and mental illness are the chief causes of homelessness. That's what needs to be addressed. And I don't think that the city has the resources to deal with this. This is something that needs to be dealt with on the county. And all we need are some volunteers who will direct homeless people and organizations to the proper county agencies that are prepared to handle it. And now Bruce Gibson has made this a huge campaign issue. He's deprioritized infrastructure and said that he wants to address homelessness. Well, fine, let him do that if that's what he wants to do, and put it on him. But let's not take it off his shoulders, because this is what he said he wanted to do. I don't think his approach is going to work. It's going to fail, and it's going to reflect badly on the way that he feels that the county needs to be run, which is to the detriment of us all, which is why we're having the big recall against him, and the fact that he's going to be head of CSAC, which we feel is going to be an unmitigated disaster for the state of California. So we need to really address the root causes, direct people to the appropriate county mental health facilities, and give them incentives to get the proper help. My wife has a degrees in sociology and business. She worked for social services. We know what happens when government gets out of control and trying to help people. It just creates a demand for more welfare. My wife came home one day, was extremely frustrated that she was giving money to someone who had 4 different kids from 3 different fathers. Now, how does that happen? Because they know that if they split up, they can get money from the government. We have to take James Dobson's tough love approach to this if we're really going to get to the root cause. The government is already spending enough money. What we need to do is redirect people to where they can really get results. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and last thing, I talked to somebody who you all know, I'm not going to use her name, but she said the best way to address homelessness is to enforce the laws so that people know they break the laws, they go to jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we'll close it, bring it back to council. And I believe we have a direction that needs to be given.
So, John, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Pro Tem Gregory, go ahead.
But before I do, I would encourage anybody to go down to ECHO and watch that young man Austin work. He took 2 full loads of clothing from one of my homes, and we helped, and shoes and all kinds of stuff, and he was right in it and working with everybody. So I just want to thank you guys for what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job. And I'd also like to say that if you do the math, it's probably under $8,000 a bed, and that would be for Gary's information. We're doing a lot better job than any government agency by partnering with ECHO, and they've done a wonderful job. Anyway, So I'd like to make a recommendation that the city council receive and file ECHO's 23-24 first quarter report, direct staff to disperse payment in the amount of $55,000, approve the First Amendment of the ECHO supplemental MOU, and disband the temporary ECHO ad hoc committee.
Second by Bausch.
Okay, motion by Gregory, second by Bausch. Any discussion on the item?
To clarify, it's 55,500. Sorry.
Oh, pardon me.
She got you.
She got me.
To be particular.
55,500.
All right. Any other discussion? None. Okay. Melissa, go ahead.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Roden?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Definitely nonprofits working with an agency that can get our tax dollars go a lot further than any government agency could. So well done, for ECHO. Okay, we'll do a 5-minute break. All right. Let's go ahead and resume the meeting, please. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start in with discussion item number 2, which is introduction, first reading for ordinance amending chapter 9.05 of the municipal code. And that's basically, looks like it's having to do with adding the pump track into that language. So, Angelica, you have the item.
Tonight, we do come to you to request you introduce for first reading by title only an ordinance amending Chapter 9.05 of Title 9 of the Paso Robles Municipal Code to include pump tracks. Chapter 9.05 currently regulates skate park facilities in accordance with Health and Safety Code Section 115800. This brings skateboarding and use of other wheeled devices within the hazardous recreational activity immunity provided under Government Code 831.7. This code shields public entities and employees from liability for any damage or injury to property or persons arising out of the hazardous recreational activity. Pump tracks, Chapter 9.05 does not currently include pump tracks, which are designed to be used by persons riding non-motorized wheel devices. And as we know, construction is currently in progress for a Rec Foundation-funded pump track at Barney Schwartz Park that we expect to be open in March of this year. Adopting this ordinance will amend the code to include pump tracks and update the code to provide definitions for skate park and pump track facilities and specified wheeled devices. Add language requiring children 12 years of age or younger be supervised by an adult at all times while at the skate park or pump track. Include additional skate park and pump track facilities use regulations for safe use. And reassigns the responsibility of posting signage and maintaining record of all known and reported injuries at skate park and pump track facilities to the Director of Community Services. Our recommendation tonight is that you introduce for first reading by title only this ordinance of the City Council of the City of Paso de Robles amending Chapter 9.05 of Title 9 of the Paso Robles Municipal Code to include pump tracks.
Okay, that's your report?
That's my report.
Okay, any questions? Sharon? Go ahead.
Angelica, just one quick question. They add language requiring children 12 years of age or younger to be supervised by an adult. Why only 12?
That's actually in compliance with the Health and Safety Code Section 115800.
But if do you not want to cover anyone who's still a minor? If you want to exempt yourself from some liability? I mean, this is a skate park that you have to drive to. So children, kids get their permits, at 16? But they're still not legal until 18.
So the health and safety code she cited talks about 12 years and older, so we were being in compliance with state law. If you wanted to do something else, we could certainly look at that.
I don't know. Is there a reason to expand it? No?
Yeah, well, liability reasons, I would think.
That's what I'm thinking, because it's purposely done for to try to avoid liability.
Right.
So we've had the current skate park on Riverside, and it's 12 years, or for how many years now?
I actually don't know when that was built.
Long time.
Long time.
Without incident, so I don't see why adding the extra burden would gain anything. I don't have any 12-year-olds at home anymore, but not too long ago I did. I think the 12-year-olds, 13 and on up, are responsible. I'm
sorry, I laughed out loud.
When it comes to, they're going to get kicked out if they don't behave themselves, and they kind of have a
is there going to be
self-regulating methodology of making sure that
so maybe we can get some clarification from Elizabeth, because she's the authority essentially in the legal department. What's your take on this?
So we can certainly look at changing that if you're interested. I'm not sure that it gives us any greater protection than we already have. We have liability protection under both state law and then this ordinance. So I think we're well covered, but if you wanted to look at 13 and older numbers, we could certainly do that. I'm pulling up the state statute right now to make sure it doesn't conflict with anything.
Well, question, this actually adds the pump track language to it? Is that really what it's about?
Yeah, so
Meaning-
right now we have a skating ordinance, right, that addresses skate parks, but it specifically defined it to skate parks, and this is not a skate park, it's a pump track.
Exactly. So
we were just expanding this to give us all of the same protections that we have under the law and that we have for skate parks.
So a lawsuit could technically say because you didn't cover pump tracks, I'm suing you because of.
Correct.
Councilman Gregory.
Yeah, I have a question, and this is probably more of a legal question. But since there's actually bicycles involved, do we require helmets for all users?
Yes, we do, and that's outlined in the ordinance.
It is in the ordinance, okay. And is that the same at the skate park?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And that's also in accordance with Health and Safety Code 115800.
Okay. Any other questions from council? All right, we'll open up to public for any public comment on the item. Seeing none, we'll bring it back then to the council for discussion and or action.
I'm just going to make a comment, not a question. I don't know any teenager over the age of 16 who is going to have their parent watch them ride their bike. If you've ever raised teenagers, you won't have any use of that track.
Well taken. Well taken. All right. And again, any other discussion and or action? Anyone?
Motion.
Mr.
That we introduce for first reading by title only an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Paso Robles, amending Chapter 9.05 of Title 9 of the Paso Robles Municipal Code to include pump tracks.
Second. All right, we have a motion by Bowers. Let's go with Councilman Strong for the second. Any discussion? Go ahead and call for the question then.
Councilmember Vouch.
Aye.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Roden.
Aye.
Mayor Hammond.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angelica. All right, item 3, acceptance of the airport assessment report and recommendations. Mark Scandalis.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, Mark Scandalis, Airport Manager. As you know, the city purchased the airport 50 years ago in 1973. At that time, the airport was roughly 1,000 acres, had 50 based aircraft, and was largely undeveloped with only 4 businesses operating on 3 lease sites. At that time, staff included 1 airport manager, 2 secretaries, 3 maintenance workers, and airport crash fire rescue consisting of 10 volunteer firefighters. Fast forwarding to 2024, the airport and the city has grown in nearly every way. Today, the airport is 1,300 acres, has 223 based aircraft, supports 44,000 aircraft operations per year, and has 40 lease sites supporting over 700 jobs for the local community. As many know, Roger Oxborough took over as airport manager in 1985. He successfully ran the airport for 38 years. With direction from the city council, Roger was able to turn the airport into what it is today, a fairly busy general aviation airport with revenue generation capabilities able to support itself entirely through its lease rates, aeronautical charges, and aeronautical tax revenue. Over these 38 years, the airport industrial park grew, but the airfield and the vision for the airport remained relatively unchanged. Today, the airport operates on a 20-year-old master plan. The last new airfield pavement surface was built in 2010, and airport staffing levels have remained unchanged since 1985, with 2 to 3 people tending to the airport 5 days a week. In June of 2022, after a mentorship alongside Roger, I took over as airport manager. After 38 years with 1 manager and 1 perspective, it became apparent to me we needed an outside perspective and an opinion of the airport to help us plan for its future. In January 2023, the city contracted with Aviation Management Consulting Group, a well-respected, industry-leading, aviation-specific consulting group, to perform a full top-to-bottom assessment of the airport. including the planning, development, operations, management, and finances of the airport. This assessment took place over 3 months and took in perspectives from airport users, elected and appointed officials, city staff, and community stakeholders. Following the completion of the assessment, an ad hoc committee of the Airport Commission was formed to prioritize the assessment and develop a plan for implementation. At the December 7th meeting, the Airport Commission voted to forward the plan to the City Council. Tonight, we're going to have Bob Trimborn and Dave Ruppel of Aviation Management Consulting Group to review the findings of the airport assessment and go into depth on the 6 recommendations the Airport Commission chose as their plan for the betterment of the airport. In addition to the consultant's finding and the Airport Commission's plan, we'll be reviewing financial plans on how to pay for these items entirely out of the Airport Enterprise Fund, needing no contribution from the taxpayer funded general fund. These financial plans are for reference only, and all financial asks will be brought back to the City Council for consideration through the normal budget-making process. Tonight, the City Council is only asked to accept the consultant's report and the Airport Commission's plan. With that, I'd like to introduce Dave Ruppel and Bob Trimborn to go over the findings.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, again, I'm Bob Trimborn, and this is David Ruppel. We're consultants with Aviation Management Consulting Group. Our company's been in existence for 25 years. We focus primarily on helping sponsors with general aviation airports. We do work across the United States. I live in Thousand Oaks, California. My work is primarily on the West Coast. My experience with this airport actually goes back to 1967 when I landed here on my first solo cross country as a young 16-year-old pilot. So I've got a lot of personal interest in this airport. I've watched it grow over the years. My wife and I camp at the Wine Country RV Resort, so I'm really attuned to the city and to this airport, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk about the airport and our results of our assessment. So there I am, and there's David. David flew in from Denver today to be with us to discuss his perspective on the airport. He spent three months with Mark last year as part of our project. So the scope of an airport assessment is basically to do a full deep dive into the way an airport functions. That's a very simple perspective on it. We look at the entire operation inside and out. We get perspectives from stakeholders, both within the city and outside, how they view the airport, how it functions within the community, what they feel could be done to make the airport a better place, and also give us perspective on the shortfalls of the airport. Our observations are based upon this incredible group of people that make up our organization. They're based on best management practices that we've gleaned over the years of working for airports again across the United States. So what did we look at? We looked at the airfield layout, security, planning and development, operation and maintenance, management and staffing, budget, financing, and all the significant documents, and again, the stakeholder perspective. All these things were given a deep dive, and having Dave on site really helped provide a lot of context to these perspectives. So again, I came on site and did a full 3-day deep dive into the airport, did a lot of interviews with stakeholders, a lot of tours of the airport, and we interviewed airport management staff, city staff, elected and appointed officials, commercial operators based at the airport, and the users and tenants of the airport. You know, the site visit interviews that we did were exhaustive. Dave took notes. I kind of ran the show. So and it was a scripted stakeholder interview process. Several of you here were part of that process. We tried to be very consistent in our questions so that all of the questions and answers all lined up and we could analyze them cleanly across all people that were interviewed. So on the screen, you can see all the things we looked at. You know, the incredible thing to me was this Paso Robles Space Innovation and Technology Park effort. And that really drove me to think about how this airport can actually function within this new concept within the city. Airport parks or business parks have been very successful at airports across the United States. The one that's most successful that comes to my mind is the Scottsdale Airport in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you ever want to go see the textbook definition of what an airport can do for a community, check it out. Google it, look at it. It produces billions of dollars in annual revenues and to the community and actually to the entire Arizona. It's an amazing concept. I'm not saying that that could happen overnight here at this airport, but it's something that you should look at because it gives you a great perspective on what can be done with a general aviation airport. It was all started by a dream of attaching an airport to a business park and providing airside access to these businesses, and it just took off over the years. So we did a SWOT analysis. Again, the same questions were asked with all the participants. We looked at the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities and threats of the airport. And we did, and in the report you can see, we characterized, all those in major categories. So I encourage you to look at those. So Dave's going to kind of do a rundown of the recommendations. There's short-term and long-term recommendations. We realize when we do these reports that there's a lot of meat on the bone. It's a 22-page document. We try and be as succinct as possible, and we understand there's budgetary limitations and restrictions, but it gives you a good snapshot of how that airport functions and operates. So Dave?
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. So the short-term recommendations, there were 11 short-term recommendations that were identified. They're short-term in terms of, not necessarily just the amount of time involved, but or the time frame that they should be enacted, hopefully. But also just looking at these as being low-hanging fruit, things that might be easy to accomplish that would help the airport out, and that would also set the stage for the longer-term recommendations. So 11 of the short-term recommendations, many of those did find their way into the recommendations from the ad hoc committee as well. And then another 8 long-term recommendations. And again, not necessarily meaning that they should be done a long time down the road, but more looking at the fact that these are items that have a longer horizon to them, things like master plans that have 20-year horizons, or that they are things that are just going to take a longer time to accomplish. Again, a master plan can take 18 months to 2 years to go through that process. So moving on from that to what the ad hoc committee actually accomplished out of it, looking at those assessments and then coming up with these recommendations. And we'll go through these specific items that they identified. 6 items out of those 19 recommendations that were brought to the Airport Commission and voted on to bring to you. Airport staffing, did you want to step in on that? Okay. Airport staffing to begin with, as Mark mentioned, the staffing at the airport's been very small for a long time. Not really enough staff there to accomplish what's needed at the airport, what should be accomplished, and some of the other staffing or some of the other recommendations also you'll see require a much larger staff to be able to actually accomplish those things. The way the staffing is right now, there's no way that you could accomplish those other recommendations either. And, so this recommendation points to that and identifies the need for additional staff just to be able to meet the basic requirements of an airport and manage a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day airport. Need to be able to identify what's actually happening out there. Airport master plan mentioned that a master plan from the FAA's perspective is a 20-year picture, but they really expected that a master plan is going to be updated every 5 to 7 years. The master plan for this airport is 20 years old, and really nothing has changed in that master plan in that time. So a lot has changed in terms of what the airport has capability to handle. the interest in the airport, the opportunities that are available at the airport, but none of that's really reflected in a 20-year-old master plan. So a very important document. And I think when you look at what the FAA sees in a master plan, they don't allow any projects to be brought in for grant funding unless they're identified on the master plan already. So when you have a 20-year-old master plan, it's very unlikely that you're going to have those projects that you need today actually in your master plan for the FAA to use for funding decisions. Airfield inspection protocols. Again, an airport is a complex facility with a lot of different aspects to it that you need to be able to, as a manager, know what's happening with those different parts of the facility. Whether you've got problems with your pavement, whether you have problems with security vulnerabilities, whether you have wildlife issues on the airport, all of those things can become hazards for users of the airport. So a self-inspection protocol allows you to have a formal method to go out and evaluate where the airport is at, what problems there might be on the airport, to track those problems, to identify how you're going to handle correcting those problems. There are a number of tools that can be used by the airport to help with that process. And this recommendation is just identifying the need to be able to track those concerns. Revenue enhancement studies. So I think when you look at this, an airport is expected by the FAA to be a for-profit business. So that means that the airport should be looking at fair market value for all of the different the fee structure, the leasing structure, and for the sale of goods and services on the airport. Those should be fair market value pricing. So this revenue enhancement study will help you to identify what those different funding opportunities are and how you should be setting those fee rates from the perspective of an airport. Security improvements. AMCG is recommending that you conduct a security assessment for the airport. The value of a security assessment is that it's not only going to help you to identify what those security vulnerabilities are, but it's also going to give you a list of best practices that you can use to help in dealing with those security vulnerabilities. And those can be things, everything from fencing to gates to badging systems and card access systems to help control access to the airport and protect the investment not only of the city, but of the users of the airport. Airport signage program. Again, this ties back into a lot of the other recommendations there as well, just to be able to carry forward the branding of the airport, to identify where you're, in terms of safety signage and security signage, helping people to know where gates are on the airport, where prohibited areas are on the airport, providing commercial signage so that visitors to the airport know where your businesses are and the other commercial entities on the airport. Directional signage just to help people know where they need to go on the land side, how they access different parts of the airport. And monument signage to help the community to recognize where the airport is and what's going on at the airport. So valuable tools. And that's it.
Thank you, Dave. I'd like to touch briefly again on the staffing of the airport. So I started in the airport management business in 1983 at a little airport called Hawthorne Airport next to LAX, Southern California. So I walked through the door, I had a secretary, I had a crew leader, and 3 maintenance workers, and it was an 80-acre airport. I moved up to Reno State Airport, I had a secretary, administrative assistant, 6 maintenance workers, and a crew leader. I left Santa Monica Airport, I had 25 staff, 240-acre airport. You need to have appropriate staffing. This is the liability exposure of not having appropriate staff at an airport to be monumental. And you need to have the staff there for the airport to be successful and to become a viable entity. You don't have any depth to an organization with just one or two people running an airport of 1,300 acres. If you can imagine trying to run a ranch that's 1,300 acres with one person, it'd be a pretty daunting task, let alone an airport as complex as Paso Robles Airport. So really think about that as we deliberate this assessment. To me, it's one of the most important aspects of the report. And again, the other one is the security aspect. We want to make sure that only authorized individuals have access to that airport and that you know who's on the airport at all times. At every airport I operated, we knew who was on that airport at any given moment. There was badging protocols, there was driver's training programs. You don't want people just wandering onto an airport and just because you just don't know what's there. The liability exposure goes off the chart. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to Mark.
Thank you, Bob and Dave. So this is the Airport Commission's plan that they recommended to the City Council. In layman's terms, it's a plan to staff the airport to meet our complexity, update the master plan to meet City Council goals, including the spaceport tech order concepts, improve airfield security or airfield safety and inspection protocols, ensure the airport can continue to fund itself, improve airport security, of course, and to elevate airport safety and user experience by developing a logo and updating our signage. So there are costs for this plan that the Airport Commission has recommended. These are cost estimates. These are to be considered at a later date, but these are what the cost estimates are. The staffing plan is a 3-year phased approach. These are ongoing costs. At the end of the 3-year period, the costs are estimated to be $529,000 per year. For the master plan, this is a one-time cost, $60,000. It is a FAA grant match of 10%. For the self-inspection program and the revenue enhancement study, there is no cost associated with those. For the security improvement study, it's a cost of $35,000 one-time cost. And the signage and logo development, a $60,000 one-time cost. Very important question is, how do we pay for this plan? So in the written staff report and the ad hoc committee report, we have details on how this plan is entirely funded through the Airport Enterprise Fund and how its implementation does not affect the overall health of the fund. Currently, the reserve balances are $3.1 million. In the next 10-year projection period, if we do implement this plan, our surplus revenues are expected to be anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000 per year. In the black box, you can see the ongoing cost of the plan in fiscal year 26, and in 25, you can see the green boxes, new revenues signed at the airport in the last year and a half. These new revenues are detailed in the ad hoc committee report and in the staff report, and they serve to offset the cost of the plan and keep the airport fund in good health. And with that, I'd like to bring up some airport commissioners for some statements. First, we're going to have Phoebe Brown, and we're going to have Vice Chair Gaspar, and then Chairman Eric Cook.
Well, Phoebe.
Good evening, Phoebe Brown, Airport Commissioner for City of Paso Robles. I'm here this evening to express my support for our proposed plan for KPRB. The Commission has spent 1 year working on this project, and I would love to see support from the Council to get this project moving forward. There are a few items on the proposed 6-item list that I personally would love to start working on soon, and I'm a huge supporter of this airport, and as a commissioner, would love to be given the opportunity to improve it and share how wonderful it is with our community and beyond. Thank you all for your service to our city, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your service on the commission.
Yep.
Tony?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor, council members. Appreciate you having us here. So I did vote for the recommendation. I think that the study was well done, and the recommendations made by the consultants were on point. We had a lot of discussions about the cost. $500,000 in staffing was really our biggest concern on the commission. It's a big number, going from a 1.5-man show with Roger to a much more staffed program with our new airport manager did warrant some discussion. But we really feel that the airport has, we've known as commissioners that the airport's been understaffed for years. And we finally are at a point where our revenues are increasing at the airport because of the lease rates. Our airport makes money from flowage fees and primarily from lease rates on raw land. And we have a lot of new leases coming on board with a lot more interest at the airport. And those leases are long-term commitments. They're long-term revenue streams. So when you take the long-term revenue of the leases that the airport has signed that are coming on board, 24 years, 24, 25, and 26, they more than cover the staffing. Additionally, staffing will be done, will be brought on, and when staff is brought on, City Council will have opportunities to weigh in on that and decide if they want those positions to be implemented or not. So we appreciate your support, and if you have any questions, of course, I'll be here as well with the other commissioners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony, for your support. Chairman Cook.
Evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff, and public. Eric Cook, Chairman, Airport Commission. So just to reiterate what's already been said, but I have a couple of notes of my own. So I was involved in the ad hoc committee, as everyone knows. And I'd like to thank Mark Scandelis as well as Bill Britton, who couldn't be here tonight. We spent a lot of time and energy on this, and I feel like all the efforts that were put forward should be recognized, as well as that we took it to our commission and everybody voted for that 4-1. But that being said, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mark Scandelis, who I don't think has gotten the recognition that he deserves in a lot of ways. I mean, I've been out the airport since 1986. I worked with Roger all those years, and he has really put a lot of energy. I think the city needs to understand and recognize that. I'm sure you do, that he has really worked hard out there to listen to what all the stakeholders have to say. You know, he might make mistakes, but he owns up to them. And I just want to take this opportunity in a public forum to make sure that appreciation is shown for him.
Well noted.
He's been been really helpful for me to work with, and he comes and asks questions. He doesn't just go out and wing it, which that says a lot, you know, especially trying to follow in Roger's footsteps, which I didn't think anybody could do. And this is not a paid political announcement either.
He's not up for promotion.
He's taken our IT, the technical, you know, the programs he's implemented has just been awesome. So it's all good. Okay, so I'd like to take the opportunity also to appreciate Dave and Bob from AMCG. They were very helpful, and the city for paying the money to have them come. I mean, they didn't have to do that. I think Frida, appreciate her. She was a big part of that. At first, I was a little skeptical because anytime you talk about consultants, it's like, oh, geez, here we go. But everything they said tonight was right on task. They listened to all the stakeholders. You know, they told us the positives and the negatives. They knew that there's no way we're going to take all these items and do it overnight. But that being said, I feel like the 6 items that we came up with, you know, financially wise, are going to be, you know, there's not going to be impacting the city of Paso Robles. They're going to be paid for through funding through the airport. We know the staffing is an issue, and since our staff member that was out injured, thank goodness, has been back on limited duty, but nice to see him back. And we have been getting support from the city, which I appreciate, you know, taking care of leaves and things around the airport. So my comment is I believe the city of Paso Robles, you know, has come a long way at the airport. I've been around the airport a long time. It's still got a long ways to go, but, you know, that's what I appreciate about the airport is it's still a well-used airport. We know there's a lot of opportunities moving forward. I feel like we're all setting up for that. But that being said, you know, we have an airport commission. I think it's important that the city council listens to the airport commission. I mean, we're appointed. You know, I get a little frustrated sometimes, but I mean, our stuff that we do, we don't just sit there and dream it up. And we spent a long time on this with Bill and I and Mark going through all the items. There's 19 items in there. You know, what's going to make the biggest impact for us? Well, obviously, it's curbside. It's airport side. It's when people drive up to the airport. What are they going to see? Well, when you got the weeds and the this and the that, well, we've been getting that all taken care of, which I think is helpful. But most important, I think that the city council should acknowledge and accept not only the report by these guys who did a great job, but also our recommendations, which, by the way, it was in your guys' report. On December 7th, we voted 4-1 to accept those 6 items as well. So I feel like, I just think it's important that this is acknowledged, kind of echoing what both Tony and Phoebe said, because we have put a lot of energy in this and we didn't take it lightly. And we know this is just the beginning of a lot of things we need to do, but that's all I have. Unless you have questions.
Very good. Thank you, Eric.
All right,
Appreciate your service.
So thanks for having us up here, council. In closing, I'd like to say there's always been a vision for the airport. There hasn't always been a plan to realize that vision. With this assessment, the Airport Commission has put in the work to develop a plan that can help the city council realize the goals you're looking for, including a high-functioning airport, tech corridor, spaceport. Tonight, the staff recommendation is to accept the findings of the airport assessment and the Airport Commission's ad hoc report. All financial components detailed in the reports will be considered at a later date by the City Council through the budget-making process. This assessment has been an investment in the airport, and implementing it can help the airport reach our full potential. Tonight is not a commitment to anything. It's acknowledging that we have developed a plan. As the components of the plan are carried out, the City Council will reevaluate them and to ensure they still meet the needs of the city at the time we're implementing. With that said, I hope that we were able to show and demonstrate the value in this endeavor and the care taken while developing this plan, and how its implementation can help the airport and the city now and into the future. With that, happy to take any questions you guys have.
Very good, Mark. Thank you. We'll start off with Councilman Roden on this side.
First of all, I read the report and I was impressed with the job that the consultants did. I think it all boils down to what is most beneficial in any business is safety, security, the staff to get it done, and how do you fund it. The only question I have, which I think is the low-hanging fruit that you talked about, was the signage. There were other medium priorities. This was a low priority, but I assume that was because you need to know where to go when you get there too. That's helpful. So I don't know why it was low as much as it's kind of important. Couple of questions though. There was a high priority of a long-term, which was relocate NCCC RC field. What is that?
Radio control.
So we do have a remote controlled airplane field at the airport. It's been there for many, many years. In that time, remote control airplanes have also progressed.
Okay.
So it's been identified by the consultants that we should look into the liability associated with this. Our agreement with them, make sure that it is where we need it to be, and evaluate that down the line. Okay, well, that makes sense.
Let's see. That was one of the things I had. On the positions of the maintenance workers that you're talking about, what exactly do they do in maintenance?
So at an airport, there's the land side and there's the air side.
Right.
Land side, it's all the landscaping you see in the front, coming into the terminal, picking up the weeds from the trees, things like that. On the air side, it is a ranch. There's wildlife and there's also weeds as well. So there's a lot of tractor work. There's a lot of extermination of gophers, things like that.
You're just talking farming.
Essentially. We also have 700 lights at the airport, which need to be changed out when they go out. We have navigation systems. We have a whole number of things at the airport that the maintenance workers work on.
I think that's about all I had. I thought it was well done. Thank you.
Councilman Strong.
Yeah, my question is going to be about what's not in the report. And I come from a different perspective, perhaps. And I don't want to get into too much of that, but I was one of those who was on the committee that helped plan when San Jose Municipal Airport became Mineta International Airport. And that was quite an enterprise. But it also got us in touch with some of the other consultants, one of whom came here and analyzed this back in the 1990s, and has kind of been forgotten totally. along the way. But they were looking at the potential for freight and at the runways. And I saw nothing in here analyzing the runways themselves, because with an additional few hundred feet, I think less than 1,000, the main runway could become 747 capable, but you'd have to increase the depth of the base underneath it as well. So it's not a cheap operation, but it would also then allow more freight to come in order to enhance revenue. It's not 100% as compatible with general aviation as some of the other suggestions have been made. So I can understand why these suggestions have been made. And I'm not opposed to any of them, by the way. I think they're all very important. I'm just wondering if we're ever going to get to the point where we might want to consider a freight terminal and freight coming in either through something like UPS or FedEx or some other major freight carrier.
Certainly something the city council can look at, but through the master planning process, we're going to look at the geometry of the airport, the extensions that we can put onto the runways, and see what the airport can do in the future. So that master plan is important in projecting into the future. If we wanted to do something like freight, we want to do something commercial service or something entirely different. The master plan will dictate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Gregory?
I'd like to share Councilwoman Roden's comments. This is very well done. I especially like what the commission came up with themselves. But this might shock you, but there's one thing I don't understand. Why can't we do more faster? So here's my philosophy. You have an understaffed airport for 20 or 30 years, Roger doing everything he can. Now we have a young man who wants to take it on and go for it. I don't want to wait 3 years. I want to start this right away. We have a surplus out there. Take your implemented plans that you're recommending and start them and get them going faster. We've got the master plan already. I'm assuming that's already being started. Has it started yet, the master plan? Or
we're going through the FAA's process of getting the funding, yeah.
But we have the spaceport coming up on our hands. We've got all these things happening. And as a council, I think it's our responsibility to take care of the airport, take better care of the airport, and bring you up to speed more quickly. We have the funding in the plan. We have the funding in a surplus. That's what surpluses are for sometimes, to get ahead a little bit and jump into what we're doing. I'm not trying to put pressure on your staff. What I'm trying to do is put pressure on the system to improve the airport. You've been sitting for a long time. These gentlemen have come up with great recommendations. The airport commission's totally endorsed them and enhanced them. I think it's time as a council, that's one of the considerations. And I don't know if it needs to be a budget process or not, but I think we need to talk about that. I don't want to just sit and say, two guys, one this year and another guy that year. I think we should accelerate it. Get him some administrative, operational help and management, and get him the staffing he needs and the commission, and let these guys go to work on it.
Okay.
Because
yes.
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Steve, these are more questions, but that's a comment. But yeah, I agree kind of in a way.
And I'll say my comment.
Yeah, Councilman Bausch.
I like the consultant's report. I think you guys did a great job. It was on point. I like the prioritization that the commission worked on, and I almost like your idea too, Councilman Gregory, of accelerating this. I'd like to get behind that. I just want to make clear that using surplus funds is the right way to go. I don't know if there are other things that the Airport Commission has in mind for those funds, but that should be brought out if that's the case. If not, then I think moving ahead, especially if we get approval for the spaceport, I think that's a really good recommendation that should be considered. As long as we're not commingling general funds and airport funds, as long as there is a surplus there and you're comfortable with spending that, I believe that would bring in additional revenue and replace that surplus fairly quickly. So I think that's a good thing to think about. So thanks very much for everybody that had a hand in this. Well done.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. My questions, Mark, a couple of them actually. With the fact that the AMGC consultants have given a report and recommendations, and then, of course, the Airport Commission reviewed it, did we actually come up with an actual daily operations for a particular employee? In other words, these jobs have to get done either every day, every other week, or whatever. Do we have a list of job duties that were developed from the consultant, or is that something internally from our city that we are doing?
Well, the ad hoc committee, if you look at the end of our report there, we do have draft job descriptions for all the positions that we're recommending. We looked at other airports. We did a study of 12 other airports, and we looked at the job duties there, and we compared them to what we have at our airport, and that's how we developed those job descriptions. They are draft job descriptions, drafts written straight on the front of it. As is are brought back to council, the job descriptions would be brought back as well.
Well, I guess what I'm meaning, though, Mark, is more of the things that I've noticed personally being out there 40 years. It's one of those things where no toilet paper in the bathrooms, or, I had to mow the corner lot on, propeller and wing myself. Things like that, I guess, is what I'm trying to figure out is even if we hire staff currently right now, is there too much for one person to do? I mean, I think we have one now, but is he off duty and on sick leave or something? I don't know. Do we have somebody out there currently right now as we speak?
The maintenance worker is on long-term disability right now.
Right.
But to your point, we have 2 maintenance workers which would cover 7 days a week, and then we have a lead maintenance worker. So that lead maintenance worker would dictate what's going on with the shifts, make sure that areas are covered, just like any other city department. You have a leader for that crew, and they would get those job duties done.
Based on a job duties particular to our 1,300-acre airport that have to get done every day or every week or every month or whatever. Yeah. Right? We have that already listed up.
We do have them listed. We will tighten those up for sure.
Okay. I'm all for, improving this airport. That's no question about that. But I want to make sure that if we hire somebody, that he's going to be busy. Okay. The flip side of this is the priority of the airport master plan is not on the top. And I don't know if all you know, we, with regard to our FAA license recommendation going to FAA, is being held up because of the fact that we don't have that checked off yet. Is that correct?
Correct. It's one of the multiple parts of the 420 license.
Yeah, but that's a big one because it hasn't been done for over 20 years, right? So that was something that we should have done probably before this. So that to me is a priority. If we're going to move this spaceport forward, that's an anchor in our rear right now because we can't move forward. And at the very least, that we can run them in parallel. And so if it means to me borrowing money from our airport enterprise fund to make this thing start up instead of waiting for a grant fund to do it, we need to have some direction from council to staff. We can talk about that later. That's not what's tonight. But the point is, you see where I'm going with this, is that if we are full bore on the horizontal launch spaceport license, we better have everything in line with our city and be, or at least in parallel with it, which is what we originally talked about doing. And I think with our consultants we had before. So I want to get into that later on the side point. But I do have a question for Bob or Dave, and this is something I think all the GA pilots out there would like to know about. Now, I'm not sure if you have expertise or if you have experience on this, but say, for instance, we were just granted this FAA license for a spaceport. What's Paso Robles going to look like in 10 years after that is in place? Do you have any idea with regard to operational for a regular GA pilot?
I think they can operate very well together. I think what you have is a vehicle, a space vehicle that's operating like an aircraft when it's around the airport. It opens up the doors to a lot of other technology and development that can happen in this area. But in terms of its impact on the airport, I think you just see another really fancy aircraft when it's operating in the atmosphere and at the airport. So it's not going to negatively impact the ability for general aviation to operate there or for other airport users, whether it be business or freight or other things like that.
There's only 7 of them in the United States, but I'm just curious if you've had any experience with airports with spaceport licenses on board at this point.
So I was responsible for getting the spaceport license for the Colorado Air and Spaceport. So there's actually 14 of them now in the United States.
Horizontal?
14 horizontal. Well, there's 14 spaceports.
Yes.
There's 7 or 8 that are horizontal.
There's 7 that are horizontal. We're going to be number 8, just to let you know that. Yeah.
The challenge is, I think, that there aren't really any vehicles yet that are licensed. So there's not really a good example to say what you're looking for. I think is has this worked at other places, but I think in looking at what the likely impacts are going to be, that was one of the things we had to do in going through the license in Colorado as well, was looking at how this is going to impact the other users of the airport, because it continues to be an operational and licensed airport. So we need to be able to evaluate those things, but the vehicles operate just like an aircraft when they're operating around the airport.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question there, Dave, was the fact that I've heard a lot of comments, not a lot, but some from other pilots that they're going to be really concerned if we do have that operating on, Paso Robles. And from what I've studied and heard, and you're kind of confirming it, that it's not going to be a problem, that we can work together.
Right. It's like I said, it's an aircraft when it's operating in the atmosphere and at the airport. It's not really what you think of as a traditional rocket ship or something like that. Most of the vehicles that I'm familiar with operate with, they may have very energetic type of engines, or they may have a combination of different types of engines that that either operate both in the atmosphere or in space. There's a lot of variety out there in what they're looking at, but at the end of the day, they all are very similar to an aircraft when they're operating around the airport.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, that's all really the questions I had at this point, but we will go ahead and open up if anybody else from council has any further. We'll open up to the public. Anybody wishing to address the council on this, please come forward. Bill? No? Yeah.
There you go. Thank you. Mayor Hammond, members of the council, Bill Borgsmeller, ACI Jet, Paso Robles. Just wanted to say thanks to Bob and his team. I've seen a lot of Bob's work over the past 20 years, and they wrote a great report. I think all their recommendations are valid, and having run the FBO out there for the last 13 plus years, I can tell you that airport has always been tremendously understaffed and needed more help. And I can't agree more with the analogy to Scottsdale Airport. That is a great example of an airfield to look at, to go, what are they doing and how are they extracting all that revenue? How does the airport structure work? How does governance work? How is it staffed? I think you can look at all that, and that might be a really great model, because if you go, hey, Paso's going to have its own flavor, but if you think of Paso in the future being more like that, it's a lot easier to drop the breadcrumbs down to, okay, we're here and we want to be there. It's a little bit easier to follow that path. And I think you could learn a lot of lessons from looking at Scottsdale. I think that's a great airport to model yourself after. In terms of a couple of things you guys brought up, freight, I do think Paso does have an opportunity to participate more in freight in the future, particularly with unmanned systems, which are probably still a ways down the road, but our location here, kind of central between the Bay Area and Los Angeles, there's a lot of reasons. With only a minute 40 to go, I won't regale you with why that makes sense from a technological standpoint. And from a spaceport perspective, he's correct. Really, you're dealing with advanced propulsion, large jet-powered aircraft. Sometimes those are turbine aircraft, like when you think of a conventional turbine engine. Other times it's where all the propellant and the oxidizer is encased, so it's a spacefaring engine. But from a support standpoint, it's going to be very similar to supporting large turbine aircraft. The difference is the wings are usually a little bit longer and the design's a little different, but it's very similar to supporting a large turbine airplane. The only thing, so I think, I totally agree. I think the airport needs more staff and I think everything's there. The only thing I would encourage you to map out when you do get to the budgeting part and thinking about this is making sure that we do have those big reserves. I think it's totally appropriate to use those if necessary for this. But you also want to be prepared if you get that $30 million or $40 million FAA grant down the road and you need to have your matching funds to pick up your 10% of that. So as you kind of map this out over the 10 years and think about budget, make sure you're also going, okay, well, what pavement projects and what infrastructure projects do we have coming that we need to prepare for? Because you don't want to find yourself where the FAA wants to hand you $30 million and you aren't prepared to match it to build a nice piece of pavement that brings you really valuable aircraft that bring the money to lease out your parcels. So that's kind of my 2 cents, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Kendall?
Good evening, Kendall Pearson. I'm a business owner on the airport. Want to give you a little bit of background on what my perspective is here. Before I was your friendly neighborhood flight school owner, I did 40 years in the local government. I did a career that finished off with a very large special district up in the Bay Area. We serviced 7 cities, 2 districts, and a county. So very large stuff. Got to stand on this side of the microphone lots of times. I want to reflect also some of the comments that have been made about the consultants report. They did a lot of work, and a lot of this really was, how many stakeholders did you interview? Do you know the number off the top of your head? There was a ton. So there was a bunch of people that had input into this process. So it's not just somebody coming from the outside world saying, that's what you guys need to do. It was big. So it was great. I feel sorry for Mr. Ruppel. I think I was the first guy in the door. I bent his ear for about 3 hours. And he very politely sat there and listened to me. So
I had a little bit there too. Yeah.
It was awesome. So it was a great thing. As far as from the city's point, I appreciate them bringing in a consultant. The staff work that happens here, you have your day-to-day operation, and then these additional projects cause them what I like to call a metric crap ton worth of extra work. And I really appreciate the fact that the effort's been made to do the additional. 2 things maybe to talk about on the specific plan, the staffing plan. Now, it seems to be the kind of stuff that you guys are focused on is task level maintenance. Who's cutting the weeds, who's doing whatever. You know, you need to have someone drive up and down the runway a couple times a day to make sure there's no debris. I watched Roger Oxbarrow as an individual guy. In the morning, he'd show up, he had a meeting with the city manager, and then he got off and he's changing toilet paper in the bathroom, and then he's jumping into some budget meeting, and he's jumping on a tractor and blowing all the crap off the taxiways that the Osprey put off. But that guy was doing everything. So the point to be made here is that you can't do strategic level thinking and give you guys the information that you want when you're tied up with task level operations. You can't do it. So some of the people hopefully are going to be hired in this process are going to be strategic level thinkers, like an assistant airport manager, someone to help manage contracts, somebody to help manage vendors, you know, all that stuff. You need the people there to help you with the oversight. That's one. The other thing I'd like to support too is the security at the airport. I mean, we have several hundred yards of open fence. The National Guard guys, when they were here, kind of went blank stared when I said, what are you guys doing for force protection? When the C-130s came in and that big push they had a couple of years ago, there was nobody here to protect them and keep people from walking out onto the tarmac in front of those 4 big Cuisinarts of the C-130 and not having those people get chewed up and stop their operations wholeheartedly. So the airport stuff is important to me. I have a lot of assets out there from the flight school itself. So that kind of protection, security in the airport is a big deal too. But again, appreciate the effort. This is the first step. The next part is the master plan. And one quick thing for Mr. Strong talking about the cargo operations. We talked about the vision for the airport. That's something you guys got to put forward. I mean, cargo would be great. Big jets would be great. Everything would be fantastic, but I'm not sure if the downtown residents want the 777 going over their house every 15 minutes with Paso wine going to Tokyo. What do you want to do? That's your guys' job, not dumping it on you, but it's something to kind of figure out what we're going to do going forward. Master planning process, all that stuff is coming up. Lots of stuff happening. So I appreciate your efforts. I don't envy you because there'll be a lot of big decisions coming here, but I appreciate everything you guys have done so far. It's been great.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close it.
Mayor
Bring it-
Hammond, I
Yeah.
do have a caller online.
Oh, sure, go
Ben
ahead.
Andros.
Oh, hang on, Dave, we got somebody on the phone, but
You were gonna request public. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my name's David Newtile. I run a business at the airport. I've been up here since 1993. I've worked with Roger. I've watched the airport over the years. I'm here to support Mark. The transition was great. Everything's worked well. Roger worked with me to get into a hangar that I rent from the city, and I appreciate that. I've watched the airport for 30 years, and all I can say to really add anything to this is the airport was not growing for a long time as far as usage. It actually went through a pretty dismal decline for years. It was only up until about 6-7 years ago that we started to see a resurgence in flying, people wanting to fly, people wanting to teach, people wanting to sell fuel to them. We also went through a drought. So amongst recent changes has been the weather that's really affected the airport. It affects everything, every aspect of it. The trees, the structures, the runway ramps, everything, we've seen weeds like we haven't seen for a good long time. So that put an increased burden. I knew the guy prior, Dan, that worked there that hurt himself. Him and I had several conversations. He always said he needed help. They do need help. They've needed it for a long time, and even more so now. So it isn't like they need one more guy. Just to maintain the airport, they need several more. And I agree with Kendall that he also needs some help in doing the increased workload that the airport's taken on. Facilities have changed, it's grown, and with that, the needs have grown. I'm here to support Mark any way I can. He's helped me out, and thank you.
very good, Dave, thank you. All right, Alyssa, we have someone online.
Yes, Ben Andros.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
Ben Andros. Commissioner Andros.
Oh, yes, Ben, go ahead.
Hey, hello, Mayor Hammond, hello, City Council. I think I got in line, so I'll take my chance just here for 30 seconds to do what everyone else is doing and raise their hand in support of Mark and the team's effort on this. Sorry I couldn't be there to do it in person. One thing I wanted to point out, which I think is great about the way Mark has set this up, and he emphasized at the end of his presentation, which was high liquidity for the city on this in terms of the ability to flex the plan as they go. It's really just, but having an outline, I think if I were in Mark's shoes as far as which direction we want to go is extremely valuable in terms of him doing kind of what Kendall was talking about, being able to think strategically and step away from the weed whacker for a little bit and, hey, what are we planning for next? There's lots of off-ramps built into the plan if there is financial or regulatory burdens that mean we need to redirect. But I think we'll get a lot more even out of the resources we have now with the plan. I think this plan is a pretty good one. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Andros, for your service. And do we have anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring it back then to the council and have discussions and direction. Anybody want to start?
Okay, Ty, fix this.
Yeah.
So I'd like to agree with the comments for Mark, not only to get him physical help, but also strategic help, somebody like an assistant, because I think what's going to happen is everything is going to all of a sudden come out of the woodwork as we start fixing things and getting moving and working on the master plan and all of the things that are coming towards us. So literally, it'd be nice to have that ability to manage 7 days a week and stay comprehensively ahead of the game. We could also, encourage the input from the commission to help in the general outline of the direction to go. And sometimes I think it's really important as a community. Sometimes when you have a plan like we're seeing and developing from consultants and from our commission, sometimes we get lucky, and we have money, and we have money coming in, and you can forecast the money. Very well said about making sure we keep enough money for the matching funds, but that's what it's for. And sometimes, maybe we can make Roger jump for joy or something, but accelerate the process a little bit, because I think it's time's come. It's here. And we've done a really nice job with the rest of the parts of the city, sewer and water. We're doing really well, really good things. And now we have an opportunity with the airport. And I think it's really important as a community to invest in the airport and let it start flowering on its own good things that are out there, security, fencing, everything that's going on. There's probably 1,000 projects out there, and Mark could use administrative help and staff to do both. And as long as it's properly managed, which I know it will be because I know who your boss is. But I think it's really important to take that step and not wait. I see, I love the plan, but I kind of feel anxious. I go, got all this stuff. We got money. We got all these great ideas, and you got a great report, and you have a great commission, and everybody's working great together. And it took us a few months to get Mark on track, but not long. He's going really hard and fast now, and he's getting better and better and better, accelerating with every day he's on the job and mastering what he's doing. And I think it's important to reward those efforts and bring him some people to help him move ahead. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Councilman Strong?
Yeah, and this has been a very good report. And I can see going ahead with a new, definitely, we have to do a new land use plan. That's absolutely essential. We're way behind on that. But the other thing, and it came up in the conversation after I'd mentioned freight, and how's the public going to react to that many planes coming right over them? And that's another aspect of it is operations. And we haven't talked much about operational plans, because right now we're working on a 1% flight path. Most airports work on a 3%. I don't know why have we even looked at the possibility of using a 3% takeoff and landing, because a 3% is not that steep. I mean, we've got some places down in San Diego that use as much as a 6%, which is pretty drastic. But 3% is fairly normal throughout the United States, and it would reduce that sound going out over the community tremendously. So I'm hoping maybe we're going to have to look at operations as well. But this is very important first step, I think.
Okay. Councilman Roden, any comments? Okay. Yep.
Well, just as I said, I thought, I think the consultants and the commission did an excellent job with this, but I do agree with Councilman Gregory. I think we can kind of spur this up a little bit and maybe focus on some really important things that we need to move ahead with more than the 6.
Okay. Councilman Bausch.
So early in my career down in Los Angeles, I was fixing broken businesses and had a great mentor. And one of the things that he taught me to identify going into a business, knowing when to give it some gas is what he said. I think this is one of those opportunities where we give the airport, give Mark some gas. I think it can fly. We have a lot of hopes and dreams pinned on a spaceport that may or may not become reality. But I think we need to make sure that we do everything we can in case that doesn't happen for whatever reason. Some of the limitations that we have as far as the plan, can we accelerate that with
hiring yet another consultant to help expedite that process. I don't know if that's something that might be considered. But I feel good about investing in our own projects. This is certainly one of them. I think we'll produce great returns for the community with great partners. I think it'll happen.
Go ahead, Councilman Gregor.
Just one more comment. I also think that this is really important to look at the airport and the spaceport a little individually. I think as we've developed our city and as we've grown, the airport is it's getting out of that diamond in the rough. Now it's going to get better and better. That airport's just going to get better for us, and it's not dependent on the spaceport. We want to focus on the airport to make it a good airport, a good general aviation airport, and make it work, and use the tools we have and our resources we have to get there. And the spaceport moves right along with it at an independent level. And in the end, we can have two really wonderful projects out there. But most importantly, the one that we've had for a long time needs the help and the love and the care to make it get to the next level. Because I think the time is now, and we have a lot of really opportunities. So, my 2 cents. Thanks.
Okay, I would first off like to congratulate the AMGC. Again, you guys did a great report, and your expertise is definitely very valuable to Paso Robles. Also want to thank everybody, all the people from the Airport Commission and everybody who put in input to the consultants. A lot of work went into getting all the data that really reflects who we want to be out there. So, well done. With regard to the ad hoc's report, I certainly accept it. The only thing I'm going to say with regard to priorities, and I mentioned it with regard to the airport master plan update, which I think at this point in time is going to be super critical. I'm speaking tomorrow at the REACH conference in Goleta, specifically on our airport and our spaceport efforts. Speaking to Bulgaria, Minister of I'm not sure what department she's in, but anyway, tomorrow, people are getting, again, interested in Paso Robles because of the spaceport. And really what I want to make sure that staff is doing is not putting any anchors, so to speak, on any effort that it's going to take to get to that license. So I know that Cal Poly has completed their work as far as they can go with the application. It's essentially, I think, waiting for parts from the airport master plan. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, that's one of the components. I will say the 6 recommendations are parallel. We're working on all of them together.
Yeah.
Master plan, if you guys were to vote no on this tonight, master plan continues to move forward. A little update on that. The FAA's district office in San Francisco has approved our scope of work for the master plan. We are now in a process called the independent fee estimate. So we need to get an independent fee estimator to make sure this master plan is appropriately funded so that the FAA, we can meet some FAA checkboxes to get the grant funding. Once we get that independent fee estimate, we can come back to the city council and we can, as you say, pre-fund it. And then as the FAA grant money becomes available, reimburse ourselves. So we can pre-fund and start working on this master plan as soon as that independent fee estimate is done. City council.
True, but the master plan is going to take at least probably a year, more than likely.
Yeah, 15 months is probably more.
Yeah. See, so that's my point, is that we started this application a long time ago. We should have been, and then we talked about this very thing, running anything that needs to be running in parallel to get it started back a year ago when we started this FAA application. And I think, again, we dropped the ball. The way I see it right now, that we could have had this application to FAA for a master plan going a long time ago. Now we're just starting. So this is what I'm trying to get to staff, okay? If we're doing this FAA spaceport effort, we need to do everything we can do and stay on board with staying ahead of the wave, not behind it, okay? And that's how we're going to get to the goal quicker, is if we all work in parallel, which again is what you're doing. But again, let's not drop the ball and forget something. So,
and Mr. Mayor, along that line,
yeah,
the staffing. There's got to be enough staff to make it happen.
So we have staff.
Can't wait.
I think the point is it just wasn't pulled the trigger soon enough. what we're talking about here is internal staff that we know we have to do these things. Maybe Ty, you can chime in if you think you need to, but again, it kind of looks like what I've been told, and when I heard this, it kind of set me back a little bit, because again, in my mind, we were doing everything together to get there as quick as we can, and now we're talking another year and a half, probably longer, even if we do get the green light from FAA. I'm assuming that when we apply that FAA, we're still going to get kicked back, and we're going to be coming back and forth on that even further. You see, so what are we going to tell these people that are asking, when are you going to open, or when are you going to be there for business? It's hard to say, but with these people that are very interested, and we're talking with them tomorrow, Paso is down there right now. I want to make sure that, everything's moved forward as best we can.
Your point is well taken, Mr. Hammond. It's not that we're intentionally trying to slow the process down in any way, shape, or form. From our perspective, there'll probably be aspects of this application process that we don't know that we're going to have to provide information for, whether it's environmental reviews and to what level and to what scope are they going to be required, all the way to hazard mitigation. There's several aspects of this that are going to take some time. You're right. All things, hindsight being 2020, I wish we would have had more information in order to direct that. But as was pointed out, we're now, Roger retired year and a half ago?
Year and a half.
June 22, yeah.
Big transition, trying to get things situated, trying to get our evaluation, understand the process, a lot of moving parts, not trying to make excuses, only the lay of the land as it was. And we're doing our best to keep up with it and make sure we stay ahead of it, as you put it. And I think that, from a city perspective, this is probably one of the more holistic looks the city has taken, with some affirmative requests for action from council in a very short amount of time. Lots of parallel tracks moving with the airport when it comes to tech corridor, when it comes to FBO services, when it comes to all these things that are going on at the airport at once, and all the more importance where I need my airport managers, head not in changing out toilet paper, but focusing on the long-term strategic goals.
Right. So again, well taken. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff in the air, and we're doing a lot of work already, but I think what's important too is just keep your council, up to speed on really what's going on. Don't like getting blindsided, which I did the other day, and it's not cool. So,
Mayor, question?
Yes.
There's a lot of smart people in here in the room that deal with these things. So I'm wondering if there are people who create master plans just like there are people who write grants or do consulting or whatever that can actually, if we need to move this along at a faster pace, is there another way of doing it that we can accomplish it in a faster time?
I assume we already have a consultant in mind. We've used them before. Is that Tartaglia that we're probably going to use? Or
We're going to be working with Tartaglia for the engineering side of it, and Kaufman Associates, an environmental and planning firm that specifically does airports, for the master plan.
Yeah, they have history with our airport. So there's people.
And it's still going to take a year and a half?
Well, that's staff's estimate. Consultants, you've had,
They
obviously.
may be able to speak and do more, but there is the FAA side that we have to go on their timeline.
Right. Yeah, all being said, again, I think you got the drift of what we're talking about here, that we need to get on it. And anything we can run parallel to get it there quicker to the goal, that's really what it's about.
So, John, can I ask a question of our attorney? So I was going to make a recommendation to accept the findings of the airport assessment from the Airport Commission and the Ad hoc Committee. And should we add direction to that to help accelerate some of this, to help?
Well, I think,
or
just staff's got direction with. I think they're getting the idea.
How specific should we get?
I don't think you need to be very specific. I think just accepting these findings, staff understands that you want to move this forward, and they've already said they're moving everything forward sort of parallel, and we'll be back during the budget cycle with requests during that time and as they get the grants worked out with the FAA.
I'll second Mr. Gregory's motion.
All right. So we have a motion by Gregory, second by Bausch. Any comment? Any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question, Melissa. Thank you.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Roden?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Well done, staff. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to city manager report. Mr. Ty Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple updates for community and council. Last Friday, we held another Coffee with the City Manager event. This time we were talking about the city's homeless strategic plan that council heard a couple weeks ago. I would estimate there was about 30 people that showed up there, including 2 of our council members, Mr. Bausch and Mr. Gregory. Lots of good, productive conversation about the plan, about the city's engagement with our homeless community. And so I think this series is progressing along nicely. Our next one is going to be, the community is going to hear from our public safety chiefs in February. I think the next date is February 16th, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Mr. Leckel mentioned it, but the Nascimento water treatment plant is currently undergoing some maintenance shutdown. It's our winter month, so the demand on water is a little bit lower. They're looking at a few weeks to be able to conduct the shutdown and include maintenance activities in there. And my computer just died because we are out of juice, so therefore we're out of report.
That's one way of quitting early. All right, anything further, Ty, just get with us individually. Thank you. Councilwoman Roden, would you like to go ahead and give us your council business and committee reports?
I attended the Main Street Board of Directors meeting. Since I was the third council person there, I kept my mouth shut until I recognized, and I don't know when you left, Mr. Strong, but I counted about an hour and a half, and I don't think I've been that quiet unless I've been under anesthesia for that long. And then I let loose, you know. But it was great to see how the Main Street Association works and what they're doing to try to strengthen the downtown. I was very appreciative. They were very kind to me and welcoming. I went to the Hispanic Business Association meeting that Maria Garcia put on. It was the first one she's put on for a while. There was light attendance. I was looking forward to meeting more people in the community, but it did give me the opportunity to really sit down and get to know each other. And she is an amazing woman. She does so many things in her community, and I was just so impressed with her. I attended the Sound of Freedom showing at Park Cinemas, put on by Resilient Souls and Park Cinemas. And if anyone doesn't know what Resilient Souls does, they work with not only PTSD, but a lot of situations with child trafficking. It's a horrible subject nobody wants to talk about, but it occurs in our own backyard. And there were people there who have been a part of it and are trying to put their lives back together. And it's an excellent movie. It's not what you would think is a downer, but it's an eye-opener. So if you haven't seen it, see it. It's a little transforming. On a nicer note, myself, Mayor Hammond, and Councilman Gregory attended the march for Reverend Martin Luther King on Monday, and I was most impressed with the presentation, the MC, and please correct me if I don't say their names right. Lavella Walker was amazing. She did such a great job. And the keynote speaker, is it Levine? McCoy? Huh? Lauren McCoy. I wish I had a copy of her speech. But it was a lovely day and well attended. Couple hundred people plus there. And it was heartwarming and enjoyed it immensely.
Okay. Councilman Strong.
Well, thank you. And I didn't attend most of those things because I was busy flying all the way to Washington, D.C. and back and meeting at the national level on some very important interviews and appointments we had to make. Those are still in process. We have a big board of directors meeting coming up in just another week, and that will make the final decision on what was started. And then I'll be doing a lot more traveling back to Washington, D.C., Sacramento, Monterey, et cetera. But that's all that stuff. Locally, the most important thing I think I participated in was the Youth Commission meeting. Totally impressed with this group. These kids are amazing. They've already opened the youth center now, and now they're reanalyzing it and deciding some changes they want to make. So they're going after another grant, and they're going to start to turn it into a study area too. It's not just going to be entertainment, not just going to be fun and games, but you can be near the fun and games and enjoy the noise and the camaraderie and still get some studying done at the same time. So they've got some fantastic ideas, and they're moving ahead just full speed. Nothing is stopping these kids. They just want to go and participate in a lot of other things. They were wishing that they didn't have to go to school so that they could participate in the homeless census. I mean, they were ready to do just about anything that had to be done to help this community. They are so community-minded, it's amazing. So it was a very rewarding experience, and we're lucky to have that group.
Very good.
That's basically my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bausch.
Thank you. So like a lot of previous speakers, attended the bonfire. Thank you so much. That was an amazing community building event, both for locals, for out of town visitors. So thank you, Frida, and thank you to all the staff that helped put that on. Just a fun event. Attended the senior advisory, attended our Parks and Recreation meeting, Main Street, along with Sharon and Fred, the Youth Commission with Fred, the Library Board of Trustees meeting. Did they find all the ducks? Hopefully they lost some ducks in the library, so hopefully they've found them all. Advisory board interviews, thank you very much to everyone that applied for Parks and Rec. We had some good candidates, so thanks for that. Ty, thanks very much for coffee with the manager. Good attendance, and I think some really good, appropriate comments. So those are a hit. So hope to see more of those coming up. On the next day, attended the point in time count training on Saturday. Yeah. There were some really good people. I think if I remember right, there's over 100 people on that Saturday. So kind of a lot of us latecomers that made it finally. So looking forward to that on, I think, on January 23rd. Right. So, and again, thanks to Lavella and Sharon Williams and Aaron Cantrell, Brianne Overton, and I'm forgetting somebody on the committee. I apologize.
About 6 of them there.
Yeah.
Pastor Jordan.
Jordan, thank you very much. And just a wonderful day, and to everybody, the staff that helped put it on. There was some controversy. I think Paso showed what Paso does best, overcoming controversy and making things turn out right. And thank you very much to School Board Trustee Lauren McCoy for making just some wonderful, poignant comments that gave us all time to think and to appreciate Dr. King and his legacy. This afternoon, attended Travel Paso. That was my first Travel Paso meeting. I am so impressed with that organization and what they do. And the Paso Robles Housing Authority, just a short, brief appearance there before having to come here for a photo op. So Thanks very much to Dave Cook. They are doing some great things up there, investment-wise, people-wise, and I guess they're going to be looking for a few trustees to come on board. So if you're thinking about that, that is just a great organization to work with. I have a couple of things I'd like to toss out as far as considerations for future agendas. One of them came from, I think some of you may know, Mr. Aaron Cantrell over at the high school, a longtime English teacher over there. He asked for us to consider a sister cities. I think we had that. I sent something to Melissa. She said, if we have one resurrected, try to make that happen. So
We do. We thought we had one.
okay.
No, it's China. It's in China.
All right, if we could bring that back and incorporate Mr. Cantrell's thoughts into that, that would be nice. We had a request to look at the noise. Want to bring that back if that's okay with everybody, from the chief from up the freeway. So is that
Staff, what do you think?
staff okay with that?
Okay.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
good with that too. Yeah.
Last but not least, had a lot of positive comments on the lighting. So hopefully that'll come back. I mean, and the recommendations are all over the place. Leave it up all year, take it down, make it special for certain times, make it seasonal. So looking forward to that conversation. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the last thing. If we could, I don't know where we are in our parking, but a lot of suggestions to try to duplicate what the city of Truckee is doing with Flowbird with 15-minute increments in their parking. I don't know if that's something that we can do at this point as we're tweaking our software, but that's been came up several times. All right, that's my report. Thanks.
All right. Pro Tem Gregory.
Well, I'd like to thank our staff for New Year's Eve and creating the hottest fire I've ever been next to. But it was a lot of fun. And I'd like to thank Mayor Hammond to please go away next year so I can do the countdown with my grandkids. It was a lot of fun, so well attended. I think it was, I mentioned this at Travel Paso today, is that after we did the tree lighting ceremony, everybody came up to us and said that was the best tree lighting ceremony and singing that we've ever had here because of the lighting. So the same thing happened on New Year's Eve. And they danced till 11:30 at night. They had a really good band, had a lot of fun. And it's about giving back to our community. So I made a lot of promises for our council.
Checks you can't
Sorry.
cash.
But next year, we got New Year's Eve already and more lights. But the lighting is something that I just want to mention briefly, and just my 2 cents worth is that what makes the lighting so special is not only the special event, which is obviously our holidays, but the environment downtown is a different place with the lights. It's expanding our downtown. You have people walking all over the place at 9:30 at night, feeling safe, kind of wandering around. I'm sure we're increasing our restaurants and beverages sales, but it's just a really nice environment. And we don't have to copy it, but I think you got to make a splash. I came up with a saying already. It's visit Paso Robles where it's light at night. So, see, I'm already working on it, trying to help out Travel Paso. So I too would like to thank everybody in the Martin Luther King event. Lavella Walker did a great job. And Pastor Jordan's been doing a really good job for a long time. I had a nice talk with his wife, and he's just a really good guy. Did a lot of feeding the homeless for a long, long time. But the community came out in full force. Everybody was there. And the speaker was great. It was a really nice event. And I got my grandkids to sit on my lap and try to sit still for a bit. But it was really wonderful. And one little tidbit of trivia. A good friend of mine made Anthony's surfboard. for the black surfers. His Channel Islands.
Wow.
My friend's the Channel Islands, so his surfboard was in the library. Yeah.
I didn't either.
Yeah, both of his kids spent a lot of time in my house playing with the kids. So, but that was a really nice tribute, and for those of us who like surfing, it was pretty interesting. Recreation appointments, we did that. We was a really nice group of people, came up with a good candidate. And going to the city manager's coffee, nobody knew who I was because I was walking and I had my hood on, I had my little cap on and my jacket.
Incognito, yeah.
Finally, I had to take my hat off and wave it. Ty, hey, it's me. But that's the kind of community event that's really nice because a lot of personal people. And I want to tell everybody that the comments I got at that little coffee were pretty amazing about our staff. There was probably 30 people there, and I probably spoke to 20 of them, and all of them came up and said, thank you so much for how hard your staff is working and what they're doing and their accountability. You know, having Ty there and everybody that was there that day, and Helica did a great job. And it's about educating them about what we're doing about homelessness. It's a constant education. Christopher, you know this. Mark, everybody knows this. We got to keep educating them and talking to them. And by talking to everybody and facing them and getting them engaged, it really helps the view of us and what we're doing and makes our job easier. So, and several of the people were here tonight that were at that coffee. So, and then I just want to say thank you for living in such a great place and having so many great people around us.
All right. Well done. Real quick commercial. Your coffees are which day of the month that you've been doing?
Fridays.
Fridays? Every Friday? No.
We're trying to do one a month right now and bring various department heads in. So the next one, I believe, is February 16th, right? I believe is the next date. And that'll be our public safety chiefs that'll be coming in to talk.
Yeah, that's important to know that you're bringing staff and bringing a subject that everybody can get more into. And it's very informative little coffee clutch that you have going on. Well done. Thank you, Tim. My items I did, of course, was integrated waste management last week. Nothing really to report. Just moving ahead on the various things with garbage. Also attended the MLK, Martin Luther King Day yesterday. Very well attended. Great. I mean, the speakers, Lavella did an amazing job again, doing the setup on that from Parks and Rec, and all the staff that put that together. Well done. Very well done. The other thing I was going to mention too, and that's already been said, I've had probably more positive comments in all these 17 years I've been on council about our Christmas lighting of the park. I mean, everybody was just in awe that we have, number one, a downtown square, downtown park, and then the way we treated it and lit it up was just, we had people, I had spoken to somebody from Half Moon Bay that came by and looked at it. So that definitely, I think we've given, individually some direction. And I think that's what's happening here with Frida. And I got to give kudos to Frida Berman. She hit a home run on this, obviously, and her staff. But now that you've hit a home run, we're looking for another home run, right? So once you've done it, that's the goal. So, no, really, I think like Pro Team Gregory said, is that, the more we can make our downtown square appealing, the more it's going to be used, and it's going to be just like a magnet. So I think we've definitely learned something here by this effort for Christmas, and looking forward to staff's agenda item, I guess you might say, with regard to the plan and what we're going to be doing on that. And I think Rita says she is working on it currently. So the other thing I was going to mention is I want to thank Steve Gregory for stepping into the New Year's event for me, addressing the public. And I know I saw a lot of videos within a few minutes of that thing. It was amazing. I also want to thank police and fire. They're the ones I think that put it on for the public. Very well done. And the other thing we're doing tomorrow, Chris Huat and I are going down along with Paul Sloan to the REACH Summit, which is in Goleta. And again, it's all about the Central Coast and everything that's happening, but in particular, space. We're talking about Vandenberg, talking about Paso Robles, and we out of one other city, out of all the cities that are part of this, we get to speak. We have a program, 5 minutes and slides, and Paul put it together. It's going to be really nice. So it's going to be an eye-opener, I believe, for all these people that really haven't heard anything about what's going on here. But again, when I was kind of jumping on, the master plan here for the airport, again, it's something that I think we need to concentrate on. If we're doing this, we're doing it in full force and get it done in parallel, just so long as we don't have any setbacks. We've been kind of told that we won't see any major roadblocks, but you never know. This is one of those things, right? So we need to move forward and keep making things happen. So with that, we have upcoming events. Paso Robles Development Review Committee is going to be January 22nd at 3:30. And also the Paso Robles Planning Commission is going to be meeting the next day at 23rd at 6:30. Then we have the Paso Robles DRC again, January 29th and February 5th at 3:30 here at City Hall. And then finally, we're going to be meeting again here on February 6th, 6:30. And beyond that, we have nothing else on the events coming up. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead, if no one else has anything to say. Go ahead,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion by Gregory, second by Strong.
I had one question.
One other thing, sure.
Mr. Strong, I think at the last meeting, you mentioned something about the lighting in this park was the second.
Oh, yeah.
That was lit up. Can you?
In history.
In history.
From electric source.
From an electric source.
I think we need to have a commemorative plaque of that if we get our little lighting deal done.
Yeah. Let's get some documentation on this so we can maybe make that.
Oh, yeah, no, it's documented.
Yeah, okay. So moved. All right. All right, all in favor? Aye? Aye. We're adjourned.
Hey, John.